Chapter 1307, Bai Xu Clansmen, 1. Not only that, the people from the Second Alliance would never have dreamed that Leng Ruoxue and the others would dare to come to their door directly. They were not prepared at all and had even beaten them to a pulp. After the previous incident, most of the people the Alliance Master had brought were the elites of the Second Alliance, each of them with extraordinary strength. How could they have lost so easily? And he lost in such a baffling way. However, Leng Ruoxue did not care about the thoughts of the people from the two alliances. After capturing them all alive, she brought them back to the inn. Other than the alliance masters from the two alliances, she handed everyone else over to Zheng Yan to deal with. As for who Zheng Yan wanted to sell them to, she did not care. Feng De brought the alliance master of the Second Alliance to Lu Xiong's room. Lu Xiong, race your goods, pay up. Feng De threw the alliance master of the Second Alliance on the ground like trash and said to Lu Xiong, "This is the leader of the Second Alliance?" Lu Xiong's eyes were wide open as he looked at the black object lying on the ground in disbelief. The object was completely black, and he couldn't even make out a person's face. Was this really the Second Alliance's leader? He didn't dare to believe it. Besides, if the leader of the Second Alliance had really become like this, he would really have to consider whether he should buy it or not. After all, who would want to cultivate with a piece of burnt coal? It's the real deal. I'm absolutely honest in my business. Don't worry, just buy it. Feng De said with a smile. But how did the Second Alliance's leader become like this? She's like this now. Lu Xiong wanted to say something, but he stopped. He looked very troubled. Can I return the goods? How can we catch her if we don't turn her into this? Don't worry. It's just a superficial wound, she'll be fine after a few days. Of course, if you think she's old, that's another matter. Feng De said with an understanding look. Oh, how much is she? Lu Xiong asked unwillingly. In fact, he really wanted to give up, but he was afraid that the other party would turn against him, so he could only force himself to buy this black thing. How much money do you have? Feng De didn't answer and asked instead. He was willing to sell this woman to Lu Xiong. He didn't want to make money. However, it didn't make sense if he didn't accept it. After all, they had worked hard. They couldn't do it for free. I only have 500 top-grade crystals. Lu Xiong thought for a moment and said. Of course, he would not reveal all of his wealth, but this amount was almost equivalent to more than half of his wealth accumulated over the years. 800 high-grade crystals. They'll sell this woman to you. Feng De chuckled. In fact, they knew very well how much Lu Xiong's assets were. However, they would not let him spend all his savings. However, they would have the final say on how much money they could pay to buy this woman. How about 600? I really don't have much money. Lu Xiong said with a long face. Wu, is it easy for him to save some money? But now, most of his money had to be used to buy this piece of charcoal. To be honest, he regretted not wanting this item. However, in the face of the fierce Feng De and the others, he did not dare to refuse. Therefore, he could only use the method of lowering the price to make the other party give up on their own initiative. Unfortunately, Feng De would not let him have it. 800 it is, no bargaining. If you don't want to buy it, then we can only say sorry. Feng De smiled eerily at Lu Xiong as if he was saying, if you don't want to buy it, then stay with us. Buy. We'll buy it. Lu Xiong made up his mind and said while gritting his teeth, please read on /inbox0. That's more like it. With this woman here, your strength can improve quickly. Although she looks a little old now, she is still a woman. You won't be at a disadvantage. Feng De patted Lu Xiong's shoulder and consoled him as if they were good brothers. Pay up now. Then Feng De said impatiently, here you go. Lu Xiong wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, unwillingly took out 800 top-grade crystal stones from his ring, and handed them to Feng De. Hee. Now that the deal is done, this woman is yours. They'll let you do whatever you want with me. After Feng De finished speaking with an ambiguous look, he turned around and left Lu Xiong's room. The reason why he could leave at ease was because he had drugged the Alliance Master of the Second Alliance. Therefore, even if the Alliance Master of the Second Alliance woke up, he would not be able to cause any big waves. As for Lu Xiang, he did not have the courage to do so. Just as he had expected, on the night Lu Xiang bought the Second Alliance's master, he took the Second Alliance's master's bag and left quietly in the dark. As he watched Lu Xiang's back grow smaller and smaller, Feng De turned to Leng Ruoxue and said, "Miss, you let them go so easily?" In fact, according to his plan, he wanted Lu Xiang to stay for a few more days, and at the same time, he wanted to give him some counseling, in case he couldn't see the situation clearly and was controlled by that woman again. However, the miss was very assured of Lu Xiang and let them go directly. What else? Don't worry. Lu Xiang won't let the alliance master of the Second Alliance have it easy. Leng Ruoxue understood. A man like Lu Xiang, who had been oppressed for a long time, would definitely take revenge on those who had oppressed him once he had the chance to turn things around. Therefore, the leader of the Second Alliance would definitely not have an easy life in the future. He might even be worse than a slave. This was also the main reason why she did not turn the leader of the Second Alliance into a slave. She wanted the leader of the Second Alliance to not be a slave, but to enjoy the treatment of a slave. That's true, miss. Where are we going next? Feng De asked with a smile. Of course, we're going back to the mountain. All of you should go and cultivate. Leng Ruoxue reminded. For the past 3 years, Feng De and the rest had only been focused on traveling around the continent, so their cultivation had not improved much. Hence, after the matter here was settled, she planned to bring them back to Nightmare Forest to supervise their cultivation. Yes. Feng De replied obediently. It was time for them to focus on their cultivation. Even though their travels in the continent had broadened their horizons, their cultivation had been delayed. When they saw that their young miss was about to advance to the high-level deity stage, they were filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. The next day, Leng Ruoxue and the rest set out on their way home. When the genius from the Qi clan found out that Leng Ruoxue and the rest were safe, he wanted to pay them a visit. However, he was rejected. It was only then that he found out that they had already left. Chapter 1308, Bai Xu Clansmen, 2. When Leng Ruoxue and the rest returned to their home in the Nightmare Forest, they felt a sense of familiarity. After everyone had a good meal, Feng De and the rest requested to go into closed-door cultivation. After they went into closed-door cultivation, the large courtyard became quiet and cheerless. After the Ning family's master, Grand Elder, and the rest stayed for a few days, they returned to the firmament temporarily. In a short while, the entire house was once again left with Leng Ruoxue, the demon, Ziyu, Yuqing, and Xueying. Most of Leng Ruoxue's spirit beasts had chosen to go into seclusion. Xueying, who had no spirit beasts to accompany her, lay in the garden and slept all day long. That huge body of his had almost filled the entire garden. Under the reflection of the sun, Xueying's snow-white fur emitted a faint silver glow. Leng Ruoxue could not help but feel an unbearable itch in her heart. She really wanted to touch it. It felt so good. However, she could only think about it now, and did not dare to touch Xueying at all. This was because she, who had learned from her previous experience, was very afraid that Xueying would say something like, "Only my woman can touch me," so she could only endure it. Looking at Leng Ruoxue drooling at Xueying, the demon could not help but laugh. He simply hugged Xueying in his arms so that she would not keep thinking about touching other beastie. Wasn't it just a body of beautiful fur? What's so great about it? He thought to himself indignantly. Sister! Suddenly, a small cry entered Leng Ruoxue's ears. Following that, a small, snow-white ball of fur appeared in her arms. Xiao, where did you go to play? Leng Ruoxue raised the palm-sized little fellow in her arms and asked with a face full of curiosity. These few days, this little fellow had been running out of the house every 2 to 3 days. Who knew what he was secretly busy with? Sister, I've made a new friend, but he's too timid to come with me to see you, so I've been trying to convince him these days. Xiao was very honest. What new friend? Leng Ruoxue's beautiful face was filled with curiosity. It was a good thing that Xiao could make friends, but why was she being so mysterious? Come out, little white. Xiao shouted at a rock in the corner. Leng Ruoxue followed Xiao's voice and looked towards the corner. She saw a small figure hiding behind the rock. Only a small gray but was exposed, and it was still trembling slightly. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but feel curious. What kind of little beast was this? Why are you so timid? Little White. Seeing that Xiao Bai was too afraid to come out, Xiao Xiao had no choice but to go and pull its new friend out from behind the rock. The little beastie that was pulled out by Xiao Xiaoqiang was covered in dust and looked so dirty that its original color could not be seen. However, its pair of blue watery eyes were unusually bright and clear, which made people's hearts soften. When the little beast saw the strangers, it was obviously afraid. It hid behind Xiao Xiao, and its body, which was even smaller than Xiao Xiao's, kept trembling. However, its pair of light blue eyes peeked timidly at Leng Ruoxue and the others. Please read on /IBOXN0vil. Seeing this, Yuqing walked forward with a smile and took the little beast into her arms, comforting it. Don't be afraid. I'm Xiaoxiao's mother, and that young lady is our master. They'll take you to take a bath first, and we'll come back to play with Xiao Xiao later. As a mother, she could tell that this little fellow had just been born. Furthermore, it probably did not have any parents to take care of it. That was why it looked like a little beggar. Looking at this little beast, she couldn't help but think of Xiao Xiao. If Xiao Xiao had not met her young miss not long after she was born, who knew what would have happened to her? It was very difficult for such a small beast to survive in the forest, and some of the more gifted beasts might even be attacked by a group. Therefore, after seeing this little thing, her heart ached for it. After Yuqing carried the dirty little beast out of the garden, she went straight to her room, intending to help the little beast wash up. As for Leng Ruoxue, she asked about the little beast's situation. Who knew that Xiao Xiao would answer her questions in such a manner that she did not manage to get any information at all. Sister, I really don't know what kind of beastie it is. It was only born a few days ago, even younger than me. Xiao Xiao knew that Leng Ruoxue was not satisfied with her answer. She said in an aggrieved tone, "That beastie can't even finish its sentence. It was so dirty, who could tell what breed it was? Then you're going to bring it back?" Leng Ruoxue asked, feeling a little speechless. Sister, it's so pitiful. When I see it, it reminds me of myself back then. At least I was doing better than it at that time. Xiao Xiao said with a look of sympathy. Is Little White its name? Leng Ruoxue thought for a while and asked. Yes, it told me that it's called Little White. However, I think it's more suitable for Little Gray. Xiao Xiao said with an evil smile. You naughty little thing. Leng Ruoxue rubbed her little fur and said in a pampering tone. At the same time, Yuqing carried the washed Little White to the garden again. Miss, so Little White is a little white tiger. What a pretty little fellow. Yuqing said with a smile. When Leng Ruoxue heard Yuqing's words, she turned her gaze to the little white tiger in her arms. This should be a little white tiger that was not yet a month old. The silver stripes on its body were still not very clear, and the word, King, on its forehead had not fully unfolded. At this moment, it looked more like a cute, harmless little kitten, and its light blue watery eyes were still a little timid. Taking the little white tiger from Yuqing, Leng Ruoxue smiled and comforted, Don't be afraid. We won't hurt you, but you have to tell us, where are your parents? Why are you running around on your own? Leng Ruoxue was very curious about this little white tiger that was alone. She had once heard Bai Xu mention that the bigger the divine beast clan, the more they would care about their offspring. Even if there were orphans in the clan, there would be someone to take care of them. Therefore, it was almost impossible for them to be alone. However, it had happened now. Therefore, she could not help but be suspicious. And my mother is sick, so I came out to look for food. The little white tiger said timidly. It wanted to find something to eat, but because it was weak, it couldn't find anything. If it hadn't met Xiao Xiao, it would have starved to death. Chapter 1309, by Xu Clansmen, 3. Your mother is sick? Where was it? Maybe I can help it. Leng Ruoxue said after some thought. She wasn't a warm-hearted person, but who asked her to have a white tiger among her beasts? The mother who saved it might be able to ask about the situation of Bai Xu's relatives, because she knew very well that Bai Xu missed home and his relatives. In addition, she didn't want this cute little guy to be without the care of his parents. After hearing Lung Ruoxu's words, the little white tiger hesitated. Even though it had only been born for a few days, its intelligence was not low. It wanted to save its mother, but it did not want the human in front of it to bring any danger to its mother. To put it bluntly, it did not trust humans very much, but it did not doubt this beautiful human sister in front of it. Xiao Bai, quickly bring us to your mother. I can save your mother. Seeing that Xiao Bai did not respond for a long time, Xiao Xiao could not help but urge. Yes. The little white tiger nodded its little head and finally made up its mind. Following that, it led the way, leading Lung Ruoxue and the rest to the cave where the mother and son were temporarily staying. Inside the cave, he saw a woman lying on the grass-covered ground, covered in blood. She was on her last breath. When Lung Ruoxue and the rest walked closer, the woman with a weak aura suddenly opened her eyes and looked at Lung Ruoxue and the rest with vigilance. Who are you? How did he find this place? The child. Give me back my child. When the woman saw the little white tiger in Lung Ruoxue's arms, she struggled to get up from the ground. However, her injuries were too severe, and it was obvious that she could not do it. Don't hurt my child, it's still young. The woman pleaded with tears in her eyes. We didn't want to hurt it. It brought us here. Lung Ruoxue explained helplessly. A mother beast that protected its cub was worthy of respect. Thinking of this, she handed the little white tiger in her arms to the woman. Seeing the woman holding the little white tiger tightly, her entire body trembling, she could not help but sigh in her heart. Whether it was a human or a beast, their love for their children was the same. Thank you, the woman said weakly. She was thanking Lung Ruoxue for returning the child to her. She also knew that the other party had no ill intentions. She could not help but feel a little ashamed for her lack of manners earlier. Eat this. Lung Ruoxue handed over a milky white pill that exuded a sweet fragrance. The woman looked at the pill but did not take it immediately. Instead, she looked at Lung Ruoxue deeply and said, Thank you. I will remember your kindness. After saying that, the woman took the pill and ate it without hesitation. Please read on /aboxn0v.com. After a while, the woman's injuries were completely healed. However, she had not changed her clothes, so it was still a shocking sight. You're from the White Tiger clan? Lung Ruoxue asked when she saw that the woman's injuries had recovered. Yes, I am. The woman nodded. There was nothing to hide. She would be surprised if the other party couldn't guess it after seeing her child. I want to understand the White Tiger clan's recent situation. Lung Ruoxue asked directly. To these prideful beastie, there were times when it was better to speak out their thoughts directly. The current White Tiger race can no longer be compared to the past. I can only tell you this much. As for the rest, please forgive me for not being able to comment. The woman said after some thought. Oh, what are your plans after this? Seeing that the woman was not willing to tell her, Lung Ruoxue did not force her. After all, she would find out about it when she went to the God world. I have to leave this place. I wonder if you can help me take care of my child? The woman said embarrassedly. Her beautiful face was slightly red. Obviously, she knew that her request was a little too much. After all, he was not related to her and had saved her. However, she still wanted him to help take care of her child. This was a little unreasonable, but she had no other choice. No problem. When do you plan to leave? Lung Ruoxue nodded in agreement. I want to leave now. The woman couldn't help but be overjoyed when she saw the other party agree. Then you can go. This is for you. After Lung Ruoxue finished speaking, she took out a bottle of pills and passed it over. Thank you. I will definitely repay you. The woman said after hesitating. We'll talk when you're back. Lung Ruoxue said. Even though this lady didn't say it explicitly, she knew very well that the little white tiger's mother would most likely die after leaving this time. The chances of her coming back alive were extremely slim. Otherwise, she wouldn't be so hesitant. Thank you, he said. After thanking the little white tiger again and again, the woman got closer to it for a while before leaving reluctantly. Mother! Looking at the woman's back view, the little white tiger cried very sadly. The snow-white fur on its body was wet with tears. "Don't cry, your mother will come back for you." Lung Ruoxue hugged the little white tiger and consoled it. "Yes." After hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, the little white tiger curled itself into a ball and lay in her arms. Although it had stopped crying, tears still welled up in its eyes. It looked at Yuqing and the rest with heartache. After returning to the main residence with the little white tiger in his arms, the little white tiger lay in a corner gloomily for several days, ignoring everyone. "Miss, it seems like the little white tiger's mother's departure is quite a blow to it. What if..." Sitting on a chair in the garden, Yuqing looked at the little white tiger lying in the corner. She could not continue, and her face was full of worry. "Don't worry. She'll be back," Lung Ruoxue said with absolute certainty. The determined look in the woman's eyes before she left made her believe that as long as she was still breathing, she would return to find her child. If it wasn't for the woman's determination, she wouldn't have been so nosy as to agree to help take care of the little white tiger. A month later, the little white tiger finally recovered. It was no longer hiding in a corner gloomily. Instead, it played with Xiao Xiao all day. Time passed day by day. Half a year later, the little white tiger's mother still had not returned. However, the little white tiger had become very familiar with Lung Ruoxue and the rest. Lung Ruoxue had also given the little white tiger the name Yuan Yuan. This was because the little white tiger had been raised by them until it was chubby and looked even cuter. However, other than the fact that the little white tiger had grown horizontally in the past half a year, it had not grown much. Chapter 1310, Bai Xu clansmen. For, in the garden, Lung Ruoxue and the rest were preparing dinner when a knock suddenly sounded on the door. Ziyu went to open the door, only to find a man and a woman covered in wounds standing at the door. The two of them were supporting each other. After seeing Ziyu, they fell to the ground together without a word. Seeing this, Ziyu was stunned, but she still carried one person in each hand and brought them into the house. When Lung Ruoxue and the rest saw the object in Ziyu's hand, they were a little surprised. "Ziyu, what are you holding in your hand?" Lung Ruoxue asked curiously. "Miss, I'm carrying two people in my hands." Ziyu explained helplessly, and couldn't help but sigh. Could it be that young Miss has been with Beastie for so long that she doesn't even recognize people? "Why are you picking up people too?" Yuqing said with some anger. It was fine if he usually picked up some small animals, but now he even picked up a person. This was really preposterous. In fact, Yuqing was angry mainly because Ziyu only cared about picking them up and didn't care how to deal with them. Therefore, those small animals that he picked up were all raised by Yuqing, so it would be strange if she wasn't angry. "I didn't pick them up. They came to me on their own accord, but they fainted without saying a word. So, I had to bring them back," Ziyu said, feeling wronged. "Oh." Lung Ruoxue nodded and walked forward to take a closer look. She then realized that they were familiar faces. "Yuqing, arrange a place for them to stay. They are Roly-Poly's parents." Lung Ruoxue understood. The man's injuries were obviously more serious than the woman's, and there were many old injuries. Therefore, she guessed that the woman had left in a hurry last time to save the little white tiger's father. When the woman left the last time, she had told the woman her address, which was why the couple had come to find her. The truth was similar to Lung Ruoxue's guess. The reason why the little white tiger's mother entrusted her child to her was because she was in a hurry to save her husband. After more than half a year of hard work, she finally succeeded. The first thing she did after she succeeded was to bring her husband to find her child and reunite with the family. Who knew that because the two of them were so severely injured, they had fainted outside the door before they could see Lung Ruoxue? When they woke up, it was already 3 days later. The first thing the two of them did when they woke up was to look for Lung Ruoxue. In the garden, Lung Ruoxue looked at the two people who had recovered from their injuries. She smiled faintly and said, "It looks like you're recovering well. Please read on /inbox0. Many thanks for young lattice life-saving grace. We husband and wife have no way to repay you. We are willing to acknowledge young lady as our master. We hope that young lady will not despise us." The two of them knelt in front of Lung Ruoxue and shouted, Acknowledging Leng Ruoxue as their master was something they had already discussed beforehand. After all, not only had Leng Ruoxue helped them take care of their child for so long, she had also saved their lives many times. Hence, they really did not know how to repay her. Beastie had always known how to repay kindness, otherwise, they would feel uneasy. I didn't save you to make you recognize me as your master. Leng Ruoxue reminded as she looked at the two people kneeling in front of her. We know. We really don't know how to repay you, so we're willing to serve you. The man said, I understand your intentions, get up. Actually, all you need to do is to tell me about the white tiger race's current situation. I have a beastie that's also from the white tiger race, and he wants to know about the situation of his family. Leng Ruoxue said with a light smile. Although she was not sure of the status of these two within the white tiger race, from the looks of their strength as 7th and 8th ranked sacred beasts, they should have a certain status within the race. Young Miss Beast is also from the white tiger clan? The man asked in shock. As one of the 4 great divine beast clans, the white tiger clan was similar to the other 3 clans. They would not easily acknowledge a human as their master. If Leng Ruoxue had not saved their lives many times, they would not even want to acknowledge her as their master. Therefore, they were very surprised that Leng Ruoxue had a white tiger as her contracted beast. I took that white tiger back when I was on the prismatic wind continent. Leng Ruoxue chuckled. Oh. After the man heard this, he understood. So her beastie was the white tiger from the lower realm? That shouldn't be considered a clansman of their white tiger clan, right? Of course, he wouldn't say this out loud. Leng Ruoxue was very clear about the man's thoughts. She did not say much and only smiled calmly. Then, she moved Bai Xu out of the bracelet. Chapter 1311, Miss Yen 1. When Bai Xu appeared, it was in its mimicry state. It jumped into Leng Ruoxue's arms and its dark green eyes glanced at the couple before it lowered its head and started playing with its claws. When Leng Ruoxue saw Bai Xu's expression, she knew that this proud little fellow was doing this on purpose. He probably knew that the 4 great divine beast clans with high status would not look down on a clansman from the Ling Wind continent. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but snicker to herself. Bai Xu was really narrow-minded. Actually, she felt that it was normal for the white tiger couple to have such thoughts. After all, the white tiger clan had always lived in the divine realm, so how would they know of the existence of such a lost white tiger like you? You. Although Bai Xu did not pay attention to the couple was shocked when they saw Bai Xu because Bai Xu actually had a pair of dark green eyes that represented the royal bloodline. This was really too inconceivable. One should know that the White Tiger King clan had been sealed away tens of thousands of years ago because they had offended an important figure in the divine realm. Then, what was going on with this white tiger with the royal bloodline? They couldn't understand it. What's wrong? Leng Ruoxue pretended to be confused when she saw the white tiger couple's expressions. Miss, is this white tiger really from the lower realm? The man said in disbelief. Is there something wrong? Leng Ruoxue played dumb. Miss, to tell you the truth, in our white tiger clan, only the royal family will have dark green eyes. Therefore, I suspect that it has the royal bloodline. The man thought for a moment and said very seriously. Oh, so what if I do? Leng Ruoxue said disapprovingly. Young lady, the current emperor of the White Tiger clan does not have the royal bloodline. Therefore, if this white tiger were to appear in the divine world, it would definitely cause an uproar in the White Tiger clan. I'm afraid that the White Tiger Emperor will not let it go. The man said worriedly. At the same time, he was reminding Leng Ruoxue to be more careful. This white tiger with the royal bloodline should not appear in front of the world before it had sufficient strength. Then where did the White Tiger clan's royal clan all go? Leng Ruoxue asked curiously. Tens of thousands of years ago, the royal clan somehow offended an important figure in the divine world. Therefore, they were all sealed away. The current emperor was also supported by that important figure. Therefore, the current internal strife in the White Tiger race is extremely serious. Xiang and I were implicated and severely injured because of the internal strife in the White Tiger race. The man explained. Where is the royal family sealed? Bai Xu raised his head and asked indifferently. He did not show much excitement when he heard the man's words, but his heart was definitely not calm. This was because the royal family that the man had said was sealed was his family, the abandoned land of the divine realm. The man said, "The abandoned land? What was that place? How come I've never heard of it?" Bai Xu's face was filled with question marks. When he left the divine realm back then, he had never heard of any abandoned land in the divine realm. Please read on /iboxn0vil.com. The place where the White Tiger King race is sealed is known as the abandoned land in the divine realm. Furthermore, not only the White Tiger King race, the Phoenix race, the Dragon race and the Qilin race's King race are also sealed. The man said, "They were sealed together?" Leng Ruoxue raised her brows and asked indifferently. She had heard from Feng Zhan that the Phoenix clan had been sealed. As for the other clans being sealed as well, this was the first time she had heard of it. No. They were sealed in the east, south, west and north of the divine world. The clansmen of our 4 clans who have always been loyal to the royal family have never given up on trying to rescue them. Unfortunately, they have never succeeded. The man said with a sigh. "Oh, they're kind." Bai Xu said indifferently, then added, "I'm a member of the royal family. However, I've left the divine realm for many years. Therefore, it's normal that no one in my family knows me." "Your Highness." The man was stunned for a moment, but he reacted very quickly. Since the other party was a White Tiger King, then they naturally had to address the other party as Your Highness. "Your Highness." The woman also hurriedly bowed. The ranking of beasts had always been very strict, and bloodline was supreme. Therefore, in front of this little white tiger, the two of them had to consider themselves as subordinates, even if the royal family was currently sealed. "Yes, master, since they want to recognize you as their master, then you should take them in." Bai Xu nodded his head and said to Leng Ruoxue. "All right," he said. Leng Ruoxue agreed. Now that Leng Ruoxue had agreed, the white tiger couple did not know what to do. It was an honor for any white tiger to have the same master as His Highness. However, it was also because of this that they were hesitant. Logically speaking, in front of His Highness master, they could only be slaves. Even if His Highness had agreed, they would not dare to acknowledge Leng Ruoxue as their master. At the thought of this, the man and his wife exchanged glances and said, "How would we dare to share the same master with Your Highness? We are willing to be your slaves and servants to serve Your Highness and young miss forever. If I tell you to admit it, then admit it. Why do you have so much nonsense to say?" Bai Xu squinted his eyes and said unhappily, "Why were the subordinates of that damn bird so obedient, while his 2 clansmen were so stubborn? Wasn't it just acknowledging a master? Was there a need to think so much?" "Yes." Their legs trembled, and they almost knelt on the ground. Although the white tiger with the royal bloodline was in a mimicry form, the pressure from its natural bloodline was something they could not resist, even if they were also members of the white tiger race. After the white tiger couple carefully acknowledged their master, they told Leng Ruoxue and Bai Xu about the current situation of the white tiger race without holding back. However, the most they said was that Bai Xu should not show himself easily before he had enough strength. Otherwise, if he was discovered by the current Tiger Emperor, he would not let him off. Bai Xu was a little impatient from being repeatedly urged. He only indifferently glanced at the white tiger couple who were talking nonstop and said, "I'm much older than you, so don't treat me like your son." After he finished speaking, he laid in Leng Ruoxue's arms and fell asleep. Looking at Bai Xu's smug expression and the dumbfounded white tiger couple, Leng Ruoxue could not help but laugh. Chapter 13:12. Miss Yen 2. "Master, you're still smiling." The woman, Xiang, couldn't help but complain in a low voice. "Ha! Should I cry if I don't laugh? I know you have good intentions, but as my beastie, if it can't even protect itself, then it's too useless. So, you don't have to worry about its safety." Leng Ruoxue reminded them, feeling a little amused. Her beasts were each more astute than the other. Any one of them would be able to fool everyone outside. Therefore, she was not worried that they would be schemed against or encounter any danger because the chances of that happening were too low. Yes, the couple said in unison. Bai Xian, you guys go and see Roly-Poly. Leng Ruoxue smiled as she spoke to the white tiger couple. Yes. Bai Xian and his wife nodded and turned to see their child. After they left, the demon smiled at Leng Ruoxue and said, Xue, oh, what are your plans? As for the current plan, of course, I'm going to raise my strength first. Leng Ruoxue chuckled. Yes, improving our strength is indeed a top priority. Why don't we continue our closed-door cultivation? The demon said after some thought. If he stayed on the divine mainland, his strength would not be able to continue increasing. Therefore, he could only protect Xue, or better, by going to the divine world. However, the divine world was more dangerous than the divine mainland, so he was a little conflicted. Alright. However, we have to make a trip to northern Yen City before we go into closed-door training. Leng Ruoxue laughed. When are we going? The demon asked with a faint smile. Let's do it now. Leng Ruoxue lowered her head and thought for a moment. The demon nodded. Then, the two of them greeted Ziyu and went straight to the city lord's mansion in Yanbei City. When they arrived at the city lord's residence, Leng Ruoxue directly stated her purpose for coming. Yen Kuan was stunned after hearing her and complained, Why is young miss going into seclusion again? You haven't been in closed-door cultivation for long. I need to quickly increase my strength. That way, I'll be able to come and go as I please in the divine realm, Leng Ruoxue said honestly. My lady, the divine realm is much more dangerous than the divine continent. Yen Kuan couldn't help but remind him. Please read on /IBOXN0vil. Come, I know, but I can't just stay in the divine continent and not improve just because the divine realm is dangerous. Moreover, the divine realm still has important things waiting for me to do. Leng Ruoxue explained. I'm afraid we don't know when Miss will come out of her closed-door cultivation. Why don't you stay in the city lord's mansion for a few days? Yen Kuan said enthusiastically. Yes, we'll be staying here for a few days. Leng Ruoxue nodded. Miss, I'll have the butler take you to your residence first. I'll accompany you to the city tomorrow. Yen Kuan suggested. Yes. Leng Ruoxue nodded. Then, Yen Kuan ordered the butler to bring Leng Ruoxue and the evildoer to the Fallen Swallow residence. The last time they came to the city lord's mansion, they stayed in the Fallen Swallow residence, so they could be considered familiar with the place. When they arrived at the entrance of the Fallen Swallow residence, they sent the housekeeper away. The two of them stayed in the same room as last time. In the evening, Yen Kuan sent people to bring them a lot of delicious food. However, Yen Kuan did not accompany them for dinner. According to the steward, there was a guest in the city lord's mansion. The city where the guest lived had always maintained a good cooperative relationship with Yanbei City. The city lord knew that the two of them did not like to meet with messy people, so he accompanied them alone. The butler was afraid that Leng Ruoxue would be angry, so he kept apologizing. Butler, you've already apologized dozens of times. Leng Ruoxue was a little speechless as she asked. She couldn't help but wonder, could it be that I'm such a calculative person in the butler's heart? Miss, are you really not angry? The butler was still a little worried. Although he didn't agree with the city lord accompanying an outsider, he was the butler who served the young lady. After all, in his heart, the young lady was much more important than that person. This isn't a big deal. What's there to be angry about? Leng Ruoxue laughed. Actually, what she did not say was that if Yen Kuan really came, she might even find him annoying. I'm at ease then. The butler heaved a sigh of relief. After hearing Leng Ruoxue's confirmation, he finally felt at ease. The next day, Yen Kuan, who was supposed to accompany Leng Ruoxue and the evildoer for a walk around the city, could not make it as scheduled. However, he sent the steward to explain. When Leng Ruoxue heard this, she did not say much. She only told the steward to tell Yen Kuan to accompany the guests and not to worry about her. Xue, do you want to go around the city by ourselves? The demon suggested. If you want to go, then let's go. I'm fine with it. Leng Ruoxue chuckled. Then we won't go, let's go back to the room. The demon laughed evilly, clearly harboring ill intentions. We'll go back. Who's afraid of you? Leng Ruoxue refused to be outdone. Following that, she took the initiative to pull the demon back to her room. After a long time, Qing Ju interrupted the lovey-dovey couple in the bracelet. Sister, there's someone challenging us outside. Qing Ju said as if he was afraid that the world would not be in chaos. What kind of challenge? Leng Ruoxue was bewildered. There's a woman who came out of nowhere and has her eyes on this place. She wants to stay here and even ordered us to move out. Qing Ju explained happily. Oh, just ignore it. Leng Ruoxue couldn't be bothered to deal with this kind of insensible and spoiled woman. Sister, that woman has started to smash things. All of them are money. And it's your money. You really don't feel bad? Qing Ju asked with a look of disbelief. The city lord's mansion's money was his sister's money, so he wasn't exaggerating. You still dare to smash things? Leng Ruoxue squinted her beautiful eyes, her tone clearly showing her displeasure. She could ignore the noise, but she couldn't smash things. It would be a waste. Yes, they've already started to smash it. If elder sister doesn't appear, the Falling Swallow residence will be destroyed. Qing Ju reminded. Demon, it seems like we won't be able to enjoy a few days of peace before we go into seclusion. Why is there always trouble? Leng Ruoxue sighed helplessly. This matter should have been handled by Yan Kuan, but he was not in the residence at the moment. Chapter 1313, Miss Yen, 3. It doesn't matter, it's good to have some fun before going into closed-door cultivation. The demon said indifferently. After that, the two of them took out their bracelets and went to the courtyard. At this moment, the courtyard was in a mess. The originally beautiful flowers in the garden had all become broken flowers and wilted willows. The petals had all fallen to the ground, and the flower branches drooped their heads, as if they were telling the story of the violence they had been subjected to. There was a beautiful lady in red standing in the courtyard, directing her subordinates to smash things. The housekeeper was constantly trying to stop them, but he was pushed to the ground by his wolf-like subordinates without any hesitation. Seeing this scene, Leng Ruoxue's heart was filled with anger. Stop! Leng Ruoxue's voice rang in everyone's ears. Even though it was not loud, everyone could hear her clearly. Everyone raised their heads and looked in the direction of the voice. They could not help but stop what they were doing. When the steward saw Leng Ruoxue, he crawled up from the ground in a sorry state and ran to Leng Ruoxue's side. Young miss, the butler was about to explain but was interrupted by Leng Ruoxue. You don't need to say anything, I have my own plans. Leng Ruoxue smiled as she turned to look at the lady in red. The lady in red was extremely beautiful and had an extraordinary temperament. It was a pity that she had an arrogant look on her face. Leng Ruoxue hated this kind of lady the most. In addition, this lady had ordered people to destroy the Fallen Swallow residence that she was currently staying in. Hence, her impression of this lady was extremely bad. When the butler heard Leng Ruoxue's words, he didn't know why, but he felt nervous. Actually, he wanted to tell Leng Ruoxue about the woman's identity, but the young miss didn't let him finish his sentence. He felt a little uneasy. Who are you? How dare you cause trouble in the city lord's mansion? Leng Ruoxue ignored the butler's dilemma and questioned him coldly with her beautiful eyes half closed. We're the city lord's mansion's honored guests. Who are you? The lady in red glanced at Leng Ruoxue, her beautiful eyes burning with jealousy. She had always thought highly of her own beauty, and now that she had seen the devastatingly beautiful Leng Ruoxue, her heart immediately felt unbalanced. How could there be such a beautiful woman in this world? Her heart was instantly filled with dissatisfaction, and when she saw the evildoer beside Leng Ruoxue from the corner of her eyes, the sour water in her heart kept pouring out. Damn it, why did all the benefits go to this annoying woman? Not only was he more beautiful than her, but the man beside her was also so handsome and outstanding? Such an outstanding man should be by her side, right? Was she the only one who was worthy of that man? Thinking of this, she deliberately flirted with the demon. Unfortunately, the demon didn't even look at her, which made her even more embarrassed and angry. Since you're a guest, you should be polite. What do you mean by ordering people to smash the host's things? Is this the way your family taught you? Lung Ruoxue laughed and mocked. Please read on/Evoxen0. How audacious. How dare you say that about me? Do you know who I am? Didn't I just order people to smash some junk? If it wasn't for this damn old man who insisted on stopping me and not letting me stay here, would this young lady need to go through so much trouble? The red-clothed woman said in an extremely overbearing manner, as if it was natural for her to order people to smash things and that it was the other person's fault for stopping her. Junk? Do you know how much your so-called junk is worth? I'm afraid you can't afford it even if you sell yourself. Lung Ruoxue laughed coldly. She was truly a spoiled young miss. How could she say such ignorant words? It must be known that there were many flowers and plants in the fallen swallow residence that she had moved out of the bracelet last time and ordered people to plant them. Many of them were good things that money couldn't buy. Now, they had been smashed to pieces by this willful young miss, so it was impossible for her not to be angry. You really deserve to die. You actually said I can't compare to these pieces of trash? Just you wait, I won't let you off. The lady in red was enraged. She took out the whip from her waist and lashed it at Lung Ruoxue. However, in mid-air, the whip was split into two by a black divine energy and fell to the ground. The lady in red was even more annoyed when she saw this. She glared at Lung Ruoxue with fire in her eyes and said, What kind of skill is it to hide behind a man? Let's have a one-on-one fight if you have the ability. She knew that her whip had been slapped away by the man beside Lung Ruoxue, which made her even more jealous. That was why her tone was filled with jealousy. Shouldn't a woman hide behind her man and be protected by him? Lung Ruoxue smiled and said matter-of-factly, He's your man? The woman in red pointed at the evildoer and questioned him with jealousy. Yes, I am. Lung Ruoxue chuckled, deliberately showing a trace of pride on her face. Don't be too pleased with yourself, he won't be one very soon. The red-clothed woman said, unwilling to show weakness. Why not? He's my man in life and my ghost in death. Whether it's life or death, they can only belong to me. As for some random person, they can forget about it. Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. In her heart, she could not help but sigh. It wasn't a good thing for her man to be too outstanding. At least, there were always people who overestimated themselves and wanted to spy on him. It was really annoying. What if you die first? The red-robed woman asked calmly. You mean you want to kill me? Lung Ruoxue said. You're the one who's looking for death. The woman in red didn't deny it. She really wanted to kill this eyesore. All right, I'm just an eyesore, but are you sure you can kill me? Lung Ruoxue asked with a light smile. She had seen many arrogant women before, but this was the first time she had met someone who wanted to kill her so blatantly. How would you know if you don't try? All of you, go and kill this woman. The woman in red was determined. Since the other party had already guessed her thoughts, there was no need for her to hide it anymore. She might as well get rid of this woman in one or two. In this way, the man would be easy to capture. Lung Ruoxue would never let go of a woman who wanted to kill her and had evil intentions at the same time. Even though she did not know the woman's identity, she was definitely going to die today no matter who she was. Chapter 13-14. Miss Yen 4. After the two of them had made up their minds, the battle began. The housekeeper was so anxious that he was running around in circles. The woman in red was not to be trifled with, but his young lady was even more so. However, he could not let these two people really fight, because no matter which one of them was injured, the consequences would be very serious. Miss Yen, we're all on the same side. Let's talk things out. Please don't fight. The butler cried out in panic but was ignored by Lung Ruoxue. The red-robed woman said disdainfully, Who was on her side? Our Yen clan isn't a place that just anyone can get close to. The Yen family? Lung Ruoxue smiled and thought to herself, could this woman be related to Yen Kuan? Otherwise, why would they call themselves the Yen family? However, this relative of Yen Kun was too arrogant and domineering. Not only was he rude, but he also wanted to kill her. No matter who Miss Yen was to Yen Kun, she would not let her go. Of course, our Yen family isn't something you can afford to offend, so I advise you to surrender without putting up a fight. Perhaps this young miss will spare your life if I'm in a good mood. The red-robed woman said confidently, the arrogance on her beautiful face growing more and more intense. You will spare my life? Unfortunately, I won't let you off for the sake of the Yen family. Leng Ruoxue said emotionlessly. You're looking for death. You can't blame me. The red-robed lady was enraged after hearing Leng Ruoxue's words. After she finished speaking, she continued to order her subordinates to attack. Leng Ruoxue looked at the other party's subordinates, who were eyeing her covetously, and chuckled as she moved Shui Ying out of her bracelet. The appearance of the huge fox gave everyone a shock. Its tail, which was constantly wagging, brought up a strong wind, blowing on everyone's faces, making them feel a burning pain. Seeing the huge snow fox, the red-dressed lattice subordinates started to cower. Putting aside the fact that the fox's strength was above theirs, even if it was not as strong as them, they were not willing to fight against a large beast. Just look at its huge claws, it could crush them into meat paste in an instant. However, they did not dare to disobey the young miss orders, who asked their young miss method of torture to make people tremble with fear just by thinking about it. Little Ying, to leave these small fries to you. Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. These guys are too few, not even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. Shui Ying said in dissatisfaction. I'll make do with it. Leng Ruoxue rolled her eyes at Snow Shadow, who was still trying to act innocent even after getting an advantage. If it wasn't for the fact that this fellow had been clamoring to come out and move around, she wouldn't have moved it out of the bracelet at all. All right then. The Snow Shadow nodded its big head in grievance, and with a slight disdain, it used its tail to roll up the person closest to it and threw him into the air. When the person fell, it caught him and continued to throw. After repeating this a few times, the unlucky guy who was thrown around like a ball by Shui Ying directly fainted with white foam coming out of his mouth. You are reading on MYBOXN0VL. Calm seeing this, Shui Ying directly sat on the person's body. Then he looked at the others provocatively. Who's going first? Shui Ying said calmly. When the red-clothed woman's subordinates heard Shui Ying's words, none of them dared to make a sound. They all took a step back in tacit understanding so that they would not be used as a ball by the fox. They did not want to be like their previous companion, who was unconscious and still sat on like a meat cushion. Ugly freak, since no one is going to answer me, then you do it. Shui Ying said as he turned to the red-clothed woman with an evil smile. Ugly? Who are you talking about? The red-clothed woman thought she had heard wrong and couldn't help but ask. Other than you, is there anyone else who is so ugly? Shui Ying stared at the red-robed lady with a serious look on his face. As he looked at her, he kept shaking his big head. Damn it! How dare you call me an ugly monster? What kind of taste do you have? The lady in red was furious. She had always been proud of her looks. After suffering a blow from Leng Ruoxue, she was now called an ugly monster by a fox. How could she tolerate this? Immediately, she threw the divine power in her hand toward Shui. The Snow Shadow dodged the attack calmly. Then, it stretched out its huge claws and effortlessly caught the red-robed woman in its hands. As it looked at the struggling red-robed woman, the Snow Shadow's clear eyes emitted a mocking light. With your little strength, you still dare to call for a fight? You really don't know your place. Chapter 13-15, The Dark Clan, 1. After Shui Ying finished speaking, he unceremoniously threw the red-robed lady in his hand high up into the air. Stop, beast! You're so bold! With a furious roar, a figure as fast as lightning jumped up and caught the falling woman in red. After the two of them landed on the ground, the woman in red was so frightened that she started crying loudly. The middle-aged man who was holding the woman in red also raised his head in anger and glared at the big snow-white fox. Evil creature! How dare you hurt my daughter? The middle-aged man was furious. If he hadn't happened to come back and see the scene, he was afraid that his daughter would have died here. Chi Yu brought this upon himself, she can't blame anyone else. The snow shadow said disapprovingly, and its nonchalant attitude made the middle-aged man even more furious. What a good Chi Yu! My daughter has always been well-behaved and sensible, but you've bullied her like this. I won't let you off. The middle-aged man said fiercely. After hearing the middle-aged man's words, Leng Ruoxue was speechless. It seemed like it was indeed better for the child to come from her own family. Such an unruly, willful, and reckless woman was actually obedient and sensible in her father's eyes? She really wanted to ask, your daughter is always shouting to kill at the drop of a hat. How is she obedient and sensible? At this moment, Yan Kuan, who was behind the middle-aged man, had also rushed over. He nodded his head slightly when he saw Leng Ruoxue. Then, he walked to the front of the middle-aged man and asked with some confusion, Brother Yan, what happened? Why did you leave in such a hurry? If I hadn't come in time, my daughter would have lost her life here. City Lord Yan, are they your people? You must give me an explanation for this matter. Otherwise, there's no need for our cooperation to continue. The middle-aged man snorted and threatened. His words made Yan Kuan unhappy, but he did not show any dissatisfaction. He just asked, Brother Yan, I've been with you the whole time and I don't know what happened. How do you want me to explain it to you? They are your people, right? This evil beast almost killed my daughter. I want you to kill this fox now and avenge my daughter. The middle-aged man's eyes were filled with ferocity as he spoke viciously. Yan Kuan looked at Leng Ruoxue and did not know how to continue. Putting aside the cause of the incident, he could not kill the fox in front of him. Moreover, he could not kill the fox. The fox was fierce. And it was his Miss S. Even if he had 10 guts, he wouldn't dare to make a move. Besides, he knew his young miss quite well. He knew that she would not take the initiative to cause trouble, so it must be Miss Yen who had annoyed his young miss, and that was why she had been taught a lesson. After thinking about it a few times, he could roughly guess what had happened. Brother Yen, you know that I've just returned, so you have to give me some time to understand what happened. Don't worry, I'll give you an explanation. Yan Kuan said after thinking for a while. You are reading on Imibio X and 0 view. Come, what else do you know? If I hadn't come in time, my daughter would not be in this world now. Isn't this clear enough? I'm only asking you to kill a beast, and you're already making so many excuses. Do you not want to work with our Yen clan anymore? The middle-aged man could not help but threaten Yan Kuan again when he saw that Yan Kuan had not made a move. Brother Yan, although you're here on behalf of the Yen clan, I'm afraid you can't make the decision to cooperate with me. If you really don't want to work with our northern Yen city, then please come and talk to me personally, Yen family head. Yan Kuan, who had been in a pleasant mood all this time, was also enraged when he heard the middle-aged man's words. The cooperation between him and the Yen clan had always been on an equal footing, especially after he had recognized Leng Ruoxue as his master. Yanbei City rose with the tide. Although not many people knew that Yanbei City belonged to Leng Ruoxue, the Ning clan and Qi clan of the 8 great divine regions were on good terms with Yanbei City, not to mention the other clans. It was precisely because he had been working with the Yen clan for so many years that the Yen clan was able to suppress the other cities and continue to work with him. However, from the looks of it now, this old master Yen clearly did not know his own identity. He thought that Yanbei City was still the same as before. Although he had only been here for 2 days, he had displayed his superior status everywhere. Not only did he order him around, but he was also ordering him around. This was really preposterous. Who do you think you are, to trouble my father with a small city like Yanbei City? The middle-aged man's face was full of disdain. Before he came, his father had repeatedly urged him to treat Yan Kuan as an equal, and he had readily agreed. However, deep down, he still looked down on Yan Kuan. Now that such a thing had happened and Yan Kuan did not follow his orders, he naturally did not want to be nice to Yan Kuan. I'm the city lord of northern Yen City, and you're just the young master of the Yen clan. Yan Kuan sneered. If it wasn't for the old man from the Yen family, he wouldn't even give this kind of hedonistic son a second glance. Yen Kun, what do you mean by that? The middle-aged man was furious when he heard Yen Kun's words. He hated it when people called him the first young master of the Yen family because he wanted to be the head of the family. However, his father had not decided on a candidate for the future head of the family. As a result, he had been called the first young master for decades. Therefore, he would turn hostile whenever he heard the words, first young master. Exactly what I said. I heard that the reason why Master Yen hasn't appointed a young master yet is because his son is not up to standard. So, he's waiting for his grandson to grow up. Yen Kun didn't forget to rub salt on the young master's wound. Among the many sons of the Yen family's master, only this young master had a daughter. The others all had sons. What he meant was that he would not be the future young master's father. Yen Kun, I think you're tired of living? The young master of the Yen family roared in anger. If he could, he would kill this hateful Yen Kun right now. However, he could not do so because this was someone else's territory. No matter how arrogant he was, he would not dare to attack his master in someone else's territory. That was no different from seeking death. Who said that? I haven't lived long enough. And I'll definitely live longer than you. Yen Kun said nonchalantly. If it wasn't for the Yen family head, he really didn't want to deal with this clown. However, with this incident, he was afraid that their cooperation with the Yen family would be ruined. In that case, he didn't have any other concerns. Chapter 13:16, The Dark Clan, 2. Oh, really? Let's wait and see. The middle-aged man threw out these harsh words and wanted to leave with the red-robed lady in his arms. However, he had only taken 2 steps when he was stopped by Leng Ruoxue. Wait! Leng Ruoxue suddenly said. The middle-aged man looked at his daughter who was still in a daze in his arms. He turned his head and glanced at Leng Ruoxue. He spoke with slight displeasure. City Lord Yen, how can your maid be so rude? How dare you block my way? How does your city lord's mansion discipline you? When the middle-aged man saw that Leng Ruoxue was dressed in ordinary clothes, he assumed that she was a maidservant from the city lord's estate. However, what surprised him was that the maidservant from the city lord's estate was so beautiful. No wonder his daughter had a conflict with him here. It must have been because of this woman. When he thought of this, he made up his mind to ask for this outrageously beautiful maidservant so that his daughter could deal with her as she pleased. Previously, his attention was all on his daughter and that big fox. In addition, half of Leng Ruoxue's body was hidden behind that devilish man, so he did not notice Leng Ruoxue's existence. Now that Leng Ruoxue had suddenly spoken, he realized why his daughter had come into conflict with the people from the city lord's estate. Naturally, he had to avenge his daughter. A maidservant. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, cold sweat started to drip down Yen Kun's forehead. He couldn't help but think to himself, Young Master Yen, what kind of taste do you have? Could it be that she was a maidservant if she wasn't well-dressed? That's my master. However, after sneaking a glance at Leng Ruoxue and seeing that she did not have much of a reaction, Yen Kun did not continue the conversation. Otherwise, wouldn't it be his fault if he were to spoil the young lad's plans? Although the middle-aged man's words made Leng Ruoxue speechless, she didn't feel the need to explain so much to a passerby. Since that man thought she was a maidservant, then she would just let him think so. Seeing that Yen Kun and the maidservant did not refute, the middle-aged man felt that he had guessed correctly and continued, City Lord Yen, if I'm not wrong, today's incident should be caused by this maidservant. So, as long as you let me deal with this maidservant, I will let bygones be bygones. The middle-aged man thought that he was very generous. After all, he only asked Yen Kun to give the maidservant to him. He thought that Yen Kun would not be reluctant to do so. As for the big fox, he would deal with it in the future when he had the chance. He knew very well that if he wanted both, Yen Kun would definitely not agree, and that woman was obviously an eyesore to his daughter. Let bygones be bygones? You wish. Yen Kun cursed in his heart, but he put on a grateful expression and said, Young Master Yen, you're so generous. However, I can't hand this maidservant to you. I don't have that right. You don't have the right? Could it be that she's not a maidservant of your residence? The Yen clan's first master said with a puzzled expression. Indeed not. Yen Kun sighed and said helplessly, Wu, what did the miss mean by giving him that look? Since she's not, I'll take her away. The middle-aged man said impolitely. Just as Yen Kun was about to say no, he was interrupted by Leng Ruoxue. All right, I'll go with you, but I have to bring my man and beastie. Leng Ruoxue requested. You are reading on MYBO XN0 Vil. Come, you're just a prisoner, you don't have the right to make any requests. However, I'll allow you to bring them along. After the middle-aged man gave a warning, he changed the topic and agreed. He couldn't help but feel proud in his heart. This time, it really didn't take any effort at all. Not only did he take away the maidservant, but he also took away the big fox who had almost killed his daughter. After he finished speaking, the man held on to his daughter and walked arrogantly to the front. The Yen clan subordinates were assigned by him to watch over Leng Ruoxue, the demon, and the snow-white fox as they followed behind. Yen Kun was a little dumbfounded as he watched his young miss leave with the Yen family's master. He felt depressed. Woo! What the hell is this? Why would the young miss take the initiative to leave with the Yen clan's first master? Based on his understanding of his young miss, shouldn't she order him to keep the Yen family's old master and the others behind, and then send someone to the Yen residence to get them to come and take the opportunity to ask for a huge sum of compensation? Why was it different from what he had imagined? City Lord, what do we do now? Seeing his master being taken away, the butler was extremely depressed. What was the young miss playing at? The butler's fragile little heart could not take the shock. You're asking me, but who should I ask? By the way, tell me what's going on. Yen Kun asked in a bad mood. City Lord. It's like this. The steward reported the matter in detail to Yen Kun. After listening to it, Yen Kun thought for a while and said, Butler, send someone to the main residence to inform them that Miss has something to do at the last minute and won't be going back for the time being. Oh, all right. City Lord, what about the young Miss? That young master of the Yen family wouldn't bully our Miss, right? The butler said worriedly. Who knows who's the bully? When have you ever seen the young Miss being bullied? Yen Kun glared and roared. If he was not the city lord, he would also want to follow the young lady to watch the show. Unfortunately, he could not leave northern Yen City so easily. After the butler had sent people to the nightmare forest, Ziyu and Yuqing had brought Bai Xian and his wife over. In the living room of the city lord's mansion, the moon eye glared at Yen Kun and roared, That damned Yen Kun! Why didn't you stop them? That bullshit Master Yen and Miss Yen actually wanted to kill my master. I won't let them off. Great Aunt Yuqing, it's the young miss who wants to leave with her. Do you think I can stop her? Yen Kun said with an aggrieved expression. The people around Master are so fierce. He was so scared. Who told you to stop young miss? I told you to stop that old Master Yen. You should have left them in Yenbei City so that we could have a good show to watch. Now that they've left, where are we going to watch the show? By the way, where's their base? Let's just go straight to their nest. Yuqing said after thinking. After Yen Kun heard Yuqing's words, his forehead was full of black lines, and he couldn't help but feel disgusted. So you're not afraid that the young miss will be in danger, but just want to watch the show, Blair? If the Yen clan knew that you called their territory that way, they would definitely vomit blood in anger. After all, they were humans and not beasts. Who would like to hear their own home being called a nest? However, he only dared to think about it in his heart. He didn't dare to say it out loud in front of the violent mother beast, or he would be the one in trouble. Chapter 1317, The Dark Clan, 3, Moon Eye. Calm down. Ziyu reminded him with a helpless smile. Then, he turned to Yen Kun with a smile and said, City Lord Yen, is that young Master Yen your relative? Of course not. Although our surnames are all Yen, we're not exactly the same. Other than our many years of working relationship, we're not even close. Yen Kun quickly explained to avoid any misunderstanding. That's good. Otherwise, we won't be able to do as we please when we fight. After hearing Yen Kun's words, Ziyu said in relief. Yen Kun didn't know what to say. It seemed that no one around the mist was easy to deal with. City Lord Yen, what is that Yen family? Yu Qing asked anxiously. The Yen clan is nothing. Yen Kun was sweating. This young miss was really good at talking. Yes, I know the Yen family is not a good thing. Yu Qing said in agreement. Yen Kun was depressed. In fact, he didn't mean it that way. Okay. It was a slip of the tongue. Have you heard of the Dark Clan? Yen Kun said after taking a deep breath. Dark Clan? Could it be that the Yen clan is also a Dark Clan? Ziyu asked with a face full of shock. The Dark Generation could be considered as another power in the divine realm apart from the 8 great divine domains. However, one was in the open while the other was hidden in the dark. Although the members of the Dark Generation rarely walked in the divine world, no one dared to look down on them. Their temperaments were unpredictable and they were temperamental. Furthermore, they would definitely take revenge if there was any. If the Yen clan was really a member of the Dark Generation, then it would be troublesome for the young lady to deal with them. Because the Dark Generation would not stop until one died in order to take revenge. Unless one could kill all of them, they would never stop looking for you. Yes, the Yen clan is one of the Dark Clans. However, the Yen clan that I know is only a branch. Their main clan is in the God realm. Yen Kun nodded. How do you have business with the Dark Clan? Ziyu frowned and said disapprovingly. The words, Dark Clan, also represented trouble. Therefore, generally speaking, very few clans were willing to do business with them in the open. Of course, it was hard to say it in the dark. I didn't know that the Yen family was one of the dark families. I only found out when their master was drunk. However, our business was already very close at that time, so it was impossible for me to leave. Thus, my business with the Yen family continued until now. In fact, the Yen family master is a good person, but this young master is a little self-righteous. Yen Kun explained. If it wasn't for the fact that he felt that the Yen family head was a person he could befriend, he wouldn't have tolerated the Yen family's young master so much. However, after offending his young lady, the Yen family's young master would not be able to live a good life anymore. He just didn't know how the Yen family head would view this matter. Then you should know where the main residence of the Yen family is, right? Ziyu asked with a faint smile. You are reading on Ibo Xn 0 view. Yes, I know. Yen Kun nodded. Master Yen had invited him there before. Although it was hard to find, he still remembered it clearly. Tell us the location of the Yen family's main residence. We'll go look for the master. Ziyu said calmly. Right, we're going to find master. Yu Qing quickly echoed, her beautiful face full of excitement. How about I bring you there? Yen family head should give me some face. Yen Kun probed. No, you have to stay here and look after the house. Ziyu refused without even thinking. He was very clear about Yen Kun's thoughts, but he could not let him leave. Otherwise, wouldn't the northern Yen city be without a leader? AI. All right then. Yen Kun nodded unwillingly. Why was it that he could not join in the fun? Now, he really regretted not stopping the Yen family's eldest young master and his group. After telling Ziyu the location of the Yen residence, he was afraid that they wouldn't be able to find it, so he specially drew a map for them, and then he reluctantly watched the 4 of them leave. Seeing his city lord's resentful expression, the steward couldn't help but comfort him. Master, don't be sad. They will come back. You don't need to tell me that. Yen Kun said angrily. After he finished speaking, he glared at the housekeeper and turned back to his room to sulk. At the same time, the eldest master of the Yen clan was on his way back to the Yen clan with Leng Ruoxue, 2 men, and a beast. After leaving the city lord's mansion in northern Yen city with Leng Ruoxue and the beast, he was afraid that any delay would bring more trouble and that Yen Kun would stop him. Thus, he left immediately without delay. Originally, they wanted to ride their flying beasts back, but for some reason, after their flying beasts appeared, they all trembled and ran back to the beast's space on their own. They didn't even listen to their master's words. This made the Yen clan's first master extremely vexed, But he couldn't do anything about it, so they could only choose to walk. Even though they were walking, the young master of the Yen clan could not possibly walk on foot. Furthermore, his daughter was still in a state of shock. Hence, he ordered his subordinates to buy a beast carriage for him and his precious daughter to ride on. As for his subordinates, Leng Ruoxue, and the rest, they would naturally have to walk. However, because the beast carriage was expensive and their funds were limited, this subordinate could only buy the cheapest beast carriage for the Yen clan's first master. Because of the price, the beast pulling the carriage naturally could not be too good. Thus, they slowly advanced at the speed of a snail. Shui, are you tired? Let's take a break. Evildoer, who was walking behind the beast-drawn carriage, said to Leng Ruoxue considerately. We've only been gone for a while. I'm not that pampered. Leng Ruoxue laughed, but she couldn't help but complain in her heart. At this rate, when would they be able to reach this guy's house? Or did this guy want to kill her and Shui Ying outside? It's not impossible. I'm just worried about you. We haven't walked for so long, I'm afraid you won't be used to it. The demon said affectionately. I know. Leng Ruoxue leaned into the evildoer's embrace, her beautiful face filled with happiness. Chapter 13:18. The Dark Clan. 4. Damn it. Who allowed you to rely on him? Get away from him. At this time, the young lady of the Yen family who had just lifted the curtain of the beast carriage to look outside saw this scene and couldn't help but roar with jealousy. She had just woken up when her father told her that he had brought back the maidservant who had made her angry, along with the stinky fox who had almost killed her and the devilish man who made her drool. When she heard that, she was extremely excited. She couldn't care less about her slightly painful head and wanted to see it with her own eyes. Who knew that she would see this scene? Suddenly, the anger in her heart rose. Leng Ruoxue rolled her eyes at the young lady of the Yen family who was glaring at her through the curtain. Then, she turned her head back to the evildoer. The two of them continued to be sweet to each other as if there was no one else around. They did not take the woman's words seriously at all. Damn it. I'm talking to you. You dare to pretend you can't hear me? The young lady of the Yen family roared in anger. Seeing this, the Yen clan's first master hurriedly consoled, My good daughter, she's just a maidservant. Why are you angry with her? If you don't like her, just kill her. Father, then he'll kill her now. I don't want to see her again. The young lady of the Yen family said in an overbearing manner. Ling, there are so many people coming and going here. If we were to kill someone here and someone were to meddle in our business, wouldn't that spoil our plans? Moreover, her beast pet almost killed you. Are you willing to let her die so easily? The Yen clan's first master reminded. Actually, he was a little reluctant to let such a beauty give up her life in vain. Who asked him to always have tender feelings for women? Father is right. Well, torture her to death when we get back to the Yen family. I won't let her have an easy time, and that stinky fox too. Yen Ling, said with a vicious expression. Shui Ying, who was walking beside Leng Ruoxue, saw the fierce look in Miss Yan's eyes and said with a face full of fear, Shui, that woman is trying to get her hands on us. I'm so scared. After he finished speaking, he even intentionally leaned towards Leng Ruoxue's side. However, he was still kicked out by the demon. Why don't you know how to love little animals at all? Shui Ying crawled back again with tears in his eyes, accusing the evildoer of his atrocious acts in an extremely aggrieved manner. Are you a small animal? The demon glanced at Shui Ying's huge body and said speechlessly. He really couldn't see how this fox was small. When most beasts appeared in their beast form, they would basically mimic it. Only this fellow didn't like it. It always appeared in this form that was almost the same height as its original body. It was clearly doing this on purpose, deliberately trying to give others pressure. Of course I am. Have you ever seen such a cute fox like me? Shui Ying said arrogantly, and kept throwing charming eyes at the demon, which made the demon feel disgusted. Shui Ying, are your eyes cramping? Leng Ruoxue said, amused. Of course not. I'm just throwing seductive eyes at your man. It's a pity that your man doesn't know how to flirt. Shui Ying grumbled helplessly. He's not interested in male beasts, but if you're in heat, I don't mind you seducing that lady. Leng Ruoxue suggested with an evil smile. You are reading on Invo Xn 0 Veal. Come. I'm very sorry. I'm not interested in her. Shui Ying said with a look of disdain. But she wants to kill us. If you don't make the first move, we'll be the ones to die. Leng Ruoxue reminded. It's my honor to be able to go to the netherworld with you. Shui Ying said with a smirk, unconcerned. You wish. If you want to go, you should go to the netherworld yourself. Shui can only be with me. The evildoer roared as he suppressed his anger. Shu, lower your voice, others will hear you. When Snow Shadow heard the demon's loud voice, he hurriedly dissuaded him. It's too late. Leng Ruoxue looked at the young lady of the Yen family, who had already alighted from the beast carriage, and said with an innocent expression. Aya, a fiend has come, what should we do? Shui Ying shouted in an exaggerated manner. Stinky Fox, who are you calling a fiend? Yenling walked in front of them and asked loudly. Other than you, who else could it be? Shui Ying rolled his eyes and said speechlessly, this woman's comprehension is terrible. Even a fool could tell that it was her, but she had to confirm it. Stinky Fox. How dare you? I won't let you off. When Yenling heard Shui Ying's words, she roared in anger. Miss Hong, you've said this many times, right? If you want to kill me, then come. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Shui Ying said impatiently. If it wasn't for the fact that Shui wanted to enter their nest, it wouldn't want to waste its breath on these stupid humans. Who is Miss Hong? Yenling was attracted by the words Miss Hong, and couldn't help but ask foolishly. You. Snow Shadow said very clearly. Damn it, my surname is not Hong, my surname is Yen. Yenling Yenling was very angry and shouted, Fuck! Why did she have to be associated with that woman from the Hong family? One had to know that the one she hated the most was that woman from the Hong family. Who said your surname is Hong? I'm talking about the lady in red. Aren't you wearing red? Snow Shadow said in realization. Damn it. You're playing with me? Yenling Air's anger rose again after hearing Shui Ying's words. I'm so wronged. Shui Ying's eyes were filled with tears, and her face was full of grievance. Just you wait, I'll deal with you when I get home. And you. Stay away from him, you're not allowed to come within 3 meters of him. Yenling looked at Leng Ruoxue and warned her. As for the him she was obviously referring to the demon. He's my man. Leng Ruoxue reminded her speechlessly. She had to admit that she had seen many brainless women, but Yenling was one of the most outstanding ones. Up until now, no woman had ever ordered her to stay 3 meters away from her man in such a domineering manner. Today, she could be considered to have broadened her horizons. So what? You won't be very soon. Yenling said confidently. Then she worriedly called for the guards and ordered them to guard them closely, not allowing the two of them to get close. The guard agreed. When he saw his miss returning to the beast-drawn carriage, he whispered to Leng Ruoxue, I'm just following orders, so don't blame me. The guards were not stupid. Many of them could tell that the 2 humans and 1 beast that the eldest master had brought back were tough people. Hence, they did not make things difficult for Leng Ruoxue in private. On the contrary, they would take care of her when they could in order to obtain good karma. After all, they were only guards. Sir System dared to offend them, but they did not. Chapter 1319, The Dark Clan, 5. I understand. Leng Ruoxue smiled faintly. She wouldn't make things difficult for a few errand boys, so she naturally wouldn't listen to Miss Yan's words. After she finished speaking, she took the evildoer's arm, and the guard beside her also opened one eye and closed the other, as if he did not see anything. The beast carriage moved slowly. Seeing that the sky was getting dark and they were in the wilderness, they could only set up a tent and spend the night outside. The guards of the Yen residence were busy, while Leng Ruoxue and the demon found a place to sit down. Shui Ying lay beside them, her eyes fixed on every movement in the beast carriage. The young lady from the Yen residence had said that she would be staying in the carriage tonight. It didn't know how the father and daughter would distribute the beast carriage, so it was really curious. Not long after, Shui Ying saw the Yen clan's first master walking down from the beast carriage, clearly intending to leave the beast carriage to his precious daughter. The guards of the Yen clan prepared the food and specially sent some over to Leng Ruoxue and the rest. However, they were all rejected by Leng Ruoxue. "Thank you. We have food." As soon as Leng Ruoxue finished speaking, she took out a steaming hot roast chicken from her bracelet and passed it to Shui Ying. Then she took out another one to share with the demon. She had asked Qing Ju to roast these 2 chickens in the medium. Naturally, she had used the chickens that were raised in her bracelet and were full of spiritual energy. Therefore, the meat was exceptionally delicious. Even she, who did not particularly like to eat chicken, could eat a lot of it. When the guard smelled the chicken in Leng Ruoxue's hands, he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. They were both chickens, but why did they taste so different? Just look at how fragrant it was. However, he could only drool. At this time, Yen Ling Er's voice rang out from the beast carriage again. "What are you roasting? Let me have a taste." When the guard heard Yen Ling Er's words, he directly gave the roast chicken in his hand to Yen Ling. "Shui, do you think that annoying woman will go crazy if she finds out that the fragrance she smelled just now was from our food?" Shui Ying, who was eating very elegantly, asked curiously. She won't know. She'll only think arrogantly, why didn't the meat in her mouth smell as good as it did? Leng Ruoxue said, "That makes sense. But, where are we sleeping tonight? You're not really planning to let us sleep in the wild, are you?" Shui Ying looked at Leng Ruoxue and asked with a puzzled expression. They did not have a tent and could not take out the house. What should they do? I thought you would be used to sleeping in the wild." After hearing Shui Ying's words, Leng Ruoxue replied as a matter of course, "Didn't Beastie always go with the flow and sleep wherever they encountered? That was in the past. Now, I'm used to sleeping on a bed. If you make me sleep in the wilderness, I won't be able to adapt." Shui Ying said with an innocent look on his face. It was no longer a wild fox. Now, it was raised at home, so it had to sleep in a bed. "You are reading on MBO X and 0 view. Come, let's set up a tent later and sleep inside." Leng Ruoxue chuckled. Actually, she was just teasing Shui Ying earlier. Leng Ruoxue, the 2 humans and the beast quickly finished their meal and set up the tent. After greeting the guards who were watching over them, the 2 humans and the beast entered the tent together. The guards who saw their actions were so curious that they felt as if a cat was scratching their hearts. 2 people and 1 beast had only set up 1 tent, and all of them had entered. Wasn't it crowded? Never in his dreams would he have thought that the tent was just Leng Ruoxue's smokescreen. They had long since entered the bangle. Hence, he had done his job and stood guard outside the tent for the entire night, preventing them from sneaking away. The next day, Leng Ruoxue, the 2 of them and the beast walked out of the tent in high spirits. When they saw the guards outside the tent, Leng Ruoxue even showed them some sympathy and concern. "What's wrong? Didn't you sleep well last night?" "Yup," the guard said with a smile, but he couldn't help but complain in his heart. "It would be a wonder if you slept well. I have to guard you, how could I dare to sleep? If he let you run away, young miss would skin him alive. It's really hard to be a guard. They'll talk to your miss and ask her to increase your salary." Leng Ruoxue said with a smile. Please don't." When the guard heard Leng Ruoxue's words, he was so frightened that he hurriedly spoke. If this woman were to make such a request to the young lady would definitely think that he was in cahoots with this woman. At that time, he would not have it easy. Don't be afraid. I was just saying. Your miss won't listen to me." Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly. "The young lady will not listen to anyone." The guard hurriedly nodded. "Can we be on our way now? By the way, where is the Yen clan? How long do we have to walk if we keep going this way?" Leng Ruoxue asked casually. "We can go now. It'll probably take us at least half a month to reach the Yen residence." The guard said softly. However, he did not answer Leng Ruoxiu's question about where the Yen clan was. Oh! Leng Ruoxiu nodded and thought to herself, looks like the Yen family is quite far from Yenbei City. However, when she arrived at the Yen clan's base camp, she realized that it was not that the Yen clan was far from Yenbei City, but that their speed was simply too slow. After having a simple breakfast, the Yen clan's first master and his party continued on their way. At this moment, Ziyu and the others were also on their way to the Yen clan. After flying for nearly 2 days, the 4 of them finally found the Yen residence. The Yen clan was located in a small mountain to the north of Yenbei City. On the mountainside of the small mountain, there were 2 large characters, Yen City. Seeing these 2 words, Ziyu's forehead was filled with black lines. She thought to herself, as expected of the Dark Clan. He actually knew how to occupy a mountain as a city. It seems that the Yen clan is quite similar to our master in some ways. They both like to live in the mountains. Bai Xian sighed as he looked at the small mountain in front of him. Same Mayas. How can the Yen family be compared to our young miss? Yu Qing said with some anger. Right now, as long as she thought of the Yen family, she would have the urge to fight. He dared to touch her young miss, he really didn't want to live. I was wrong. Bai Xian saw that the tigress had gone mad and quickly admitted his mistake. Boo! He didn't dare to provoke an adult soul-gnawing beast. Wasn't that courting death? I don't plan on letting this Yen family off, you guys decide for yourselves. The Moon Eye roared furiously. Yu Qing, calm down. We have to see the young lady first before we can make any plans. Don't be impulsive. Ziyu advised helplessly. Okay, let's go then. Yu Qing said while holding back her anger. The 4 of them came to the mountain gate and handed over the invitation that Yen Kun had given them to the city guard. They were then invited into Yen City to wait for the city lord to meet them. In the Yen residence's living room, Ziyu and Bai Xian sat quietly at the side, drinking tea. As for Yu Qing, she was pacing back and forth in frustration. As soul-gnawing beasts, their tempers were naturally explosive. After following the young miss for a few years, her temper had been restrained a lot. However, for some unknown reason, after knowing about the young miss matter this time, her temper had actually gone out of control. Other than wanting to watch the show, she was also anxious to see her young miss, because she could only be by the young miss' side. Only then would she be able to calm down. Miss seemed to have the ability to calm people down, and that feeling made her very comfortable. After waiting for a while, the Yen family's steward brought in a middle-aged man who looked to be in his early 40s. When Ziyu and the others saw the middle-aged man, they all knew that he was not the master of the Yen family. Therefore, no one had any intention of getting up, and they just sat in their chairs. Chapter 1320, The Yen Family's Enemy, 1. Everyone, this is the second master of our family. The butler introduced with a smile. However, Ziyu and the others didn't say anything. Seeing this, Yu Qing sneered, Housekeeper, we want to see your family head, not some second master. Did you misunderstand what we meant? I'm sorry, everyone. The family head has something to attend to, so he sent the second master to receive you. I hope you can forgive him. The butler said with a smile. We have important matters to discuss with your clan head. Are you sure he can't see us now? Or perhaps this second master can make the decision for your Yen clan. Yu Qing sneered. Did the Yen family take them for fools? What do you mean by something happened to the master? She didn't believe it. He was clearly trying to avoid them. Miss, the master is indeed busy. Why would I lie to you? The butler wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and said helplessly, Wu, why is this woman so difficult to deal with? Only you know whether I'm lying or not. Ziyu, since he's so insincere, let's leave. Yu Qing turned her head and said to Ziyu. Yes. Ziyu nodded. The 3 of them stood up and prepared to walk out of the hall. However, he had only taken 2 steps when he was stopped by the middle-aged man. I'm sorry, everyone. My father really has something to do and can't leave. Please don't take offense. The middle-aged man said courteously. I wonder when Yen family head will be able to see us? Ziyu asked indifferently. It'll be a few days. Why don't you all stay at my Yen residence for the time being? When my father is done with his work, I'll personally invite you all. The middle-aged man said. That's good too. Ziyu nodded her head in understanding. After that, the middle-aged man instructed the butler to arrange guest rooms for Ziyu and the others. He had intended to arrange for someone to serve them, but they refused. In the guest room, Yu Qing kept walking back and forth. Seeing her appearance, Ziyu couldn't help but laugh. Yu Qing, calm down. You are reading on Ibio XN0 Vil. Calm? How can I be calm? We still haven't found the young lattice whereabouts, and that Yen family head is not willing to see us. Yu Qing couldn't help but complain. Nothing will happen to the young lady. As for that Yen family head, he most likely ran into some trouble. Otherwise, with the friendship between Yenbei City and him, he would not refuse to see us. Ziyu calmly analyzed. So what if we have a friendship? Now that the master of the Yen clan has taken away our young lady, and we don't even know if he's dead or alive, can the Yen clan and Yen Northern City still continue their friendship? Yu Qing said unhappily. She didn't care what happened to that Yen family head. In short, it was enough for her to see the young lady. If the young miss lost a single strand of hair, she would definitely destroy the Yen clan. She didn't care what kind of dark clan the Yen clan was. I think Yu Qing's words are very reasonable. That old master from the Yen clan took our young miss away, so young miss will definitely not let him off. Our enmity with the Yen clan is also set in stone. Since that's the case, we don't have to be too polite to the Yen clan. It's better for us to make the first move. Bai Xian said, wishing for the world to be in chaos. Why are you all so violent? I think we should still meet the Yen family head. There might be a good show to watch. Ziyu said with a mysterious look. What's the meaning of this? Bai Xian's curiosity was aroused. Don't you smell the faint scent of blood in the Yen residence? If I'm not wrong, the reason why Master Yen refuses to see us is probably because he's injured, or something has happened to the Yen family, so that Master Yen can't attend to many things. Don't forget that Yen Kun once said that he has a good relationship with Master Yen. Since they have a good relationship, and we have Yen Kun's notice, even if he doesn't treat us as distinguished guests, he should at least meet us in person. However, he only sent his own son. Doesn't this show that there's a problem? Ziyu said with a faint smile. Now that you've mentioned it, it does seem a little suspicious. Bai Xian lowered his head and pondered for a while. What do we do now? Yu Qing said impatiently. Well, wait, Ziyu said. When he said that he wanted to leave earlier, it was just a pretense. In fact, he also wanted to see the Yen clan's reaction. Since they were now being held back, there was naturally no need to leave so easily. But we still haven't found the young miss. Yu Qing said with a frown. We'll find out when we get the chance. Ziyu reminded. After the housekeeper brought them to the guest room, he left in a hurry. No one knew if he was really in such a hurry or if he was afraid that they would eat people. They'll go out and ask around. Yu Qing said, unable to sit still. After saying this, he stood up and left the guest room. Xiang, you should also go and take a look. Ziyu looked at Yu Qing's back and said with some worry. All right, he said. Xiang, stood up and left after Yu Qing. Ziyu, what should we do? Bai Xian couldn't help but ask. They couldn't just wait here. Just wait patiently. Ziyu said with a smirk, as if she knew what was on Bai Xian's mind. Then let's wait. Bai Xian was helpless. At the same time, in the main courtyard of the Yen residence, the second master of the Yen clan was reporting the situation of the guests to his lord father. Father, is that Yen Kun really that important? Why do we have to accommodate them? The second master of the Yen clan asked in confusion. Based on his temper, if they wanted to leave, they could just leave. However, his father had specifically ordered him to treat them well. This made him very puzzled. Yen Kun and my father have been friends for many years. Their relationship has always been good. In recent years, Yen Kun seemed to have met with some kind of lucky encounter. His momentum has been out of control. The Ning clan, Qi clan, and some other top clans have repeatedly expressed their goodwill to him. Therefore, our Yen clan naturally cannot fall behind. You know the current situation of our Yen clan. We really need allies. Otherwise, the Hong clan alone can force our Yen clan into a desperate situation. Yen family head coughed a few times before he continued. Father, I understand. The Yen clan's second master nodded. Since you understand, you must take good care of them. Remember not to neglect them. Yen family head warned. Yes, but they want to see father. I'm afraid I don't have that kind of weight. The Yen clan's second master said worriedly. Chapter 1321. The Yen family's enemy. 2. Calm them down first. When father's injuries are better, I'll naturally go see them. Yen family head sighed. Out of all his sons, his second son was the stabler one. However, his temper was too good. He could not control the old guys in the family at all. That was why he was worried. All right, father. Didn't you send big brother to Yen Bay City? Then why did City Lord Yen send them here? The Yen clan's second master voiced out his doubts. He had thought about this question for a while, but he had not been able to come up with a solution. They didn't reveal anything at all? Yen family head asked with a frown. No, they almost left when they saw that you didn't go to see them. Fortunately, I stopped them. After that, I was worried about father's injury, so I asked the butler to take them to the guest room. Second Master Yen explained. Find a chance to sound them out and see what they're here for. Yen family head said after some thought. All right, father. They'll be going out first. The second master of the Yen clan replied, and then turned to leave the main courtyard. In the next few days, the Yen clan's second master kept looking for opportunities to inquire about the purpose of Ziyu and the others' visit. However, Ziyu always changed the topic. Not only did the Yen clan's second master not manage to obtain any useful information from Ziyu and the others, but he had also been tricked into saying a lot of things. This made him feel deeply depressed and helpless. Ziyu had learned from the second master of the Yen clan that his big brother had not returned to the Yen residence yet, so she was at ease and stayed in the Yen residence. She did not ask to see the Yen clan master again. Half a month later, Leng Ruoxue and the rest followed the Yen clan's eldest master on a long journey and finally arrived at the city closest to Yen City. Of course, the reason why she knew that they were about to reach the Yen residence was because she had heard it from a guard. Thinking back on her journey to the Yen residence, Leng Ruoxue was speechless. She realized that the Yen residence was actually not that far from Yen Bay City. If they were to take a flying beast, they would be able to reach in 2 days at most. Even if they were to use a beast carriage, they should have reached in at least 8 to 10 days. However, they had walked for more than half a month. The reason for such a long journey was definitely due to the efforts of the Yen father and daughter. The city they were in was called Hong City, and it was owned by the Hong family. After the Yen father and daughter arrived in Huqing, the first thing they did was to look for a hotel. After dinner, the father and daughter went to bed early. After all, they had been on the road for more than half a month and had not rested well. They had always been pampered and spoiled, and they were so tired that they were about to vomit blood. Now that they were almost home, they naturally had to have a good night's rest. You are reading on MYBOXN0 Kam Leng Ruoxue, the evildoer, and Xue Ying were locked up in 2 separate guest rooms under Yen Ling Heir's orders. However, this did not affect the evildoer's free access to the rooms. Leng Ruoxue and Xue Ying smiled at each other as they looked at the demon who walked in openly. Xue Ying couldn't help but tease him. You seem to have entered the wrong room, right? This is my room and Xue Heir's room. You're the one who entered the wrong room. Go back to your nest. The demon said in an unpleasant tone. Yes, he was very angry. That damned woman actually dared to lock Xue up with another man. This was preposterous. It should be a male beast. But no matter if it was a man or a male beast, they were all male. He would never allow that to happen. Freak. Leng Ruoxue called out softly. Then, with a thought, she brought the demon and Xue Ying into the bracelet to rest. However, they were woken up by Qing Ju in the middle of the night. Qing Ju, what's the matter? Leng Ruoxue opened her eyes and asked in confusion. Sister, something has happened outside. You 3 prisoners should be out by now. Qing Ju said excitedly. What happened? Leng Ruoxue was very curious. Could it be that Yen Ling had come to check on their room? That's impossible, right? Yen Ling slept like a dead pig every night, so how could she care about her? She couldn't help but make wild guesses. Sister, you'll know when you get out. It's very fun. Qing Ju smirked and disappeared. Leng Ruoxue felt helpless when she saw how mysterious Green Vessel was acting. However, she still obediently left the bracelet with the evildoer and Shueying. As soon as she left the room, the door was kicked open. Then, a group of men in gray ran in. They were all holding weapons and had fierce looks on their faces. After seeing these people, Leng Ruoxue understood that these people were not from the Yen clan. Could it be that they had encountered the Yen clan's enemy? He really didn't know if they were lucky or unlucky. However, the unlucky ones would definitely not be the 3 of them. Take the 3 of them as well. The leader of the gray-robed men instructed his subordinates. Yes. The subordinate replied hurriedly. After he finished speaking, he went forward to capture Leng Ruoxue and the rest. We'll go on our own. I don't need you to catch me. Leng Ruoxue said indifferently. Then, she pulled the evildoer along and led Shueying out of the room. The gray-robed men had never seen such a cooperative prisoner before. They were stunned for a moment before they regained their senses and followed behind Leng Ruoxue and her beast. After leaving the inn, Leng Ruoxue saw the Yen family's father and daughter being tied up. The guards of the Yen family were treated slightly better than the father and daughter. At least they weren't tied up. Master Yen, Miss Yen, what's wrong with you? Leng Ruoxue chuckled and asked, pretending not to know anything. Don't play dumb. Did you find these people? Our Yen clan will not let you off. When Yen Ling saw Leng Ruoxue, she roared in anger. One must know that she had never thought that she would be in such a sorry state one day. And now, the woman she wanted to get rid of had seen her in such a state. This was really intolerable. Miss Yen, are you out of your mind? Don't you see that these people have also caught us? If you really want to find out who's responsible, shouldn't it be us who's been implicated by you? Leng Ruoxue laughed coldly. That's right. You evil people not only want to kill us, but now you've been caught by your enemies and you're even dragging us down. Shueying said with a look of dissatisfaction. Stinky Fox, what nonsense are you talking about? How could we have any enemies? Yen Ling roared in anger. Chapter 1322, The Yen Family's Enemy, 3. If he's not your enemy, is he ours? Shueying rolled his eyes and said with a look of disdain. All of you shut up. Don't quarrel. The leader of the gray-robed men said with a headache. It seemed that the 2 people and 1 beast they had caught in the end were not in cahoots with the Yen clan. What should he do? The clan head had only ordered them to capture the Yen clan, so should they release them? He was conflicted. I didn't argue with her. If you can use a rag to block this woman's mouth, they'll be very grateful. Snow Shadow reminded. That makes sense. The leader of the men in gray nodded in agreement, then gave a look to his subordinate. However, the subordinate said with some difficulty, Captain, I don't have any rags with me. You guys don't have any either? The leader of the men in gray asked the others, but they all shook their heads. Then what do we do? The leader of the gray-clothed men was in a difficult position. Obviously, he also thought that Yen Ling was a little noisy and wanted to block her mouth. What's so difficult about that? Can't you just take off one of your stinky socks and use it to stuff her mouth? Shueying suggested with a smirk. When the leader of the men in gray heard Shueying's words, he didn't have time to say anything before the angry Yen Ling spoke first. Stinky fox. Stupid fox. I won't let you off. What are you arguing about? Shut up. The leader of the gray-robed men said impatiently. Although this woman and his second young miss didn't like each other, their temper was the same. They were both so annoying. Then, he said to the subordinate from before, take off your socks and stuff her mouth. Captain, my socks don't stink. The man said, feeling wronged. The leader of the men in gray was speechless after hearing his subordinate's words. Shui Ying, on the other hand, laughed evilly and said, "Then you can take off whatever stinky clothes you want. As long as she can't speak, it's fine. Then you guys wait." After the subordinate finished speaking, he immediately ran off. Not long after, he returned with a piece of cloth in his hand. The subordinate took the piece of black cloth that was emitting a strange smell and stuffed it into Yen Ling Er's mouth. Yen Ling Er struggled, trying to get rid of the nauseating cloth. Unfortunately, her whole body was tied up, and she was powerless. You are reading on MYBOXN0VL. Seeing this familiar scene, Leng Ruoxue deeply felt that she had made the right decision in abducting Shui Ying. This fellow was born to be hers. Why did he have such similar thoughts as them? Captain, mission accomplished. The subordinate said excitedly. Well done, but I'm curious where you found the cloth. The leader of the men in gray asked nosily. I took it from a beggar. The subordinate reported. Oh. The leader of the men in gray nodded in appreciation, then ordered everyone to return home. Under the supervision of a few men in gray, Leng Ruoxue and her beast followed behind the large group of people and arrived in front of a large manor. When she saw the two large words, Hong Manor, on the plaque in front of the manor, she realized that she and her group had been captured by the Hong clan. No wonder these gray-robed men dared to capture people in Great City. It turned out that this was their territory. They just didn't know what kind of grudge the Yen clan had with the Hong clan, to the point that they were also implicated. After they were brought to the Hong family, Leng Ruoxue and the rest were locked up in a cell. However, they were locked up separately from the Yen family's father and daughter, which was exactly what she wanted. Leng Ruoxue leaned comfortably in the arms of the evildoer. She looked at the Yen clan members in the opposite cell through the bars and felt deep sense of sympathy for their encounter. Poor father and daughter of the Yen family. They were all tied up like a rice dumpling, but even so, Yen Ling Er's fierce eyes were still glaring at her. Shui, why do you always get glared at? Shui Ying said with a gloating smile. Is that even human? I didn't classify her as a human. Leng Ruoxue said with a face full of mockery. If she didn't respect others' things, she naturally didn't deserve to be respected. But she can't be considered a beast. Snow Shadow teased. You can categorize her as whatever you like, but just don't treat her as a human. Leng Ruoxue reminded with a faint smile. The human and beast's cooperation almost caused Yen Ling, who was in the opposite cell, to explode from anger. Well said, she really can't be considered a human in her current state. At this time, a woman's mocking voice rang out in the prison cell. Leng Ruoxue looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young lady in green. She was standing at the entrance of the cell with a beautiful smile on her face. Her eyes were filled with provocation as she looked at Yen Ling Er's cell. Ooh! When Yen Ling Er saw who it was, she stood up from the ground excitedly. It seemed like she wanted to say something, but her body was tied up, and her mouth was gagged, so she couldn't say anything at all. You don't need to say anything. I won't let you out. You can just stay in the cell. The lady in green chuckled. Then she turned her gaze towards Leng Ruoxue and the rest. Her eyes lit up when she saw the demon and Shui Ying. You're not from the Yen family? The lady in green raised her beautiful eyes and looked at the demon as she asked. Of course we're not from the Yen family. Seeing that the demon did not reply, Leng Ruoxue could only reply on his behalf. I'm not asking you. Who allowed you to speak out of turn? The green-clothed woman reproached. Her beautiful face was still filled with dissatisfaction. Leng Ruoxue was speechless. She was being nosy, but it seemed impossible for the woman to hear anything from the demon's mouth, because she had already sensed a trace of impatience from the demon. Miss Liu, you're really too rude. It's good that someone is willing to answer your question. You don't know how to be grateful and even scolded him. You're really uneducated. Shui Ying said with a look of dissatisfaction. Who is Miss Liu? The green-robed woman asked, suppressing her anger. Of course it's you. Shui Ying said matter-of-factly, and couldn't help but secretly think to himself, Why is the intelligence of all the women I've met these days so low? He didn't even know who he was calling. Compared to Xue, these women were simply retards. This made it very dissatisfied. Chapter 1323, The Yen Family's Enemy, 4. My surname is Hong, not Lu. The green-clothed woman couldn't bear it anymore and shouted. Who said your surname is Lu? I'm talking about the lady in green. Xue Ying said innocently. When Leng Ruoxue heard Xue Ying's reply, she could not help but chuckle softly. Swearing was really too bad. It was clearly calling out like that on purpose, purely to anger the woman in front of it. It was the same when it called Yen Ling last time. It seemed that Xue Ying was addicted to playing with her. If the one in red called her Miss Red and the one in green called her Miss Green, then the next time he saw a young lady in other colors, would there be more Miss Black, Miss White, and so on? Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but think to herself. What are you laughing at? Don't laugh. When Miss Hong, who was dressed in green, heard Leng Ruoxue's laughter, she could not help but shout out in anger. Miss Lu, you're quite meddlesome. Do you even care if others laugh at you? Leng Ruoxue asked with a calm smile. Damn it, my surname is not Lu. You're not allowed to call me Miss Lu. The lady in green was enraged. She pulled out the whip from her waist and lashed it at Leng Ruoxue. Why was it a whip again? Leng Ruoxue felt helpless. Why was it that at least 9 out of 10 women she met liked to use whips to display their might? Should she also prepare a whip and be ready to use it to whip people at any time? In fact, she didn't like weapons like whips. In fact, she hated whips to the core. Therefore, she didn't have a good impression of women who used whips to act violently. Therefore, when the green-clothed woman attacked, she also attacked. A small flame jumped happily towards the woman in green. In an instant, the whip in her hand turned to ashes. Not only that, the flame also spread to her wrist, causing her to cry out in pain. Immediately after, 2 guards rushed in from outside. After seeing the injured young miss, they quickly helped her out. When Yen Ling saw that Hong Xen, who was the lady in green, was injured, she was extremely pleased. However, she was still filled with killing intent towards Leng Ruoxue, who had caused Hong Xin's injury. After the lady in green was injured and left, the demon said to Leng Ruoxue with dissatisfaction, Xue, I should be the one doing this. It's a man's responsibility to protect his woman. But I also want to protect my man from being coveted by other women, so I have to make a move when it's time. Leng Ruoxue chuckled. Yes, well, protect each other. The demon said in a slightly nauseating manner, causing Xue to subconsciously hide to the side, and even exaggeratedly shake his long snow-white fur. Xue was just about to remind Leng Ruoxue that they would be in trouble soon after hurting Miss Lu. However, the trouble came faster than he had expected. He had only managed to say 2 words when he heard footsteps entering the cell. Who is so bold to hurt our second miss? A middle-aged man who looked like a butler shouted. You are reading on MYBOXN0VL. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue and the other 2 didn't say anything. However, Yen Ling obviously wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity to get rid of Leng Ruoxue. Unfortunately, her mouth was gagged and she couldn't speak, so she could only use body language to express her thoughts. Miss Yen, you know? The butler looked at Yen Ling's appearance and quickly asked. His second miss had injured her hand and had fainted from the pain. They only knew that her second miss had been injured in the cell, but they didn't know who had injured her. That was why they had come to the cell to ask. Yes. Yen Ling nodded vigorously, afraid that the other party would not understand her meaning. Since Miss Yen knows, please tell me who this person is. The butler said indifferently. Yes. Yen Ling kept nodding her head, and her eyes drifted to Leng Ruoxue. Following Yen Ling's line of sight, the steward's eyes landed on Leng Ruoxue. His eyes lit up instantly. He never thought that there would be such a stunning beauty locked up in this cell. However, if this beauty had really hurt the second young miss, she would not be able to live long. Was it you who injured the second young miss? The butler asked in a soft voice, putting away his strange thoughts. If I said no, would you believe me? Leng Ruoxue asked with a smile. There's a witness, of course I won't believe it. The butler thought for a moment and told the truth. If that's the case, why are you still asking me? Leng Ruoxue retorted. Ah. The butler was taken aback by Leng Ruoxue's question. He had not expected her to be such a beauty. The master would probably like this type of woman. At the thought of this, he smiled at Leng Ruoxue and said, although there are witnesses, the evidence is obviously not enough. When the young lady wakes up, I will ask her clearly. At that time, if it was really you who did it, don't blame me. After saying that, the butler led the team out of the cell. Looking at the Hong family's housekeeper leaving after asking a bunch of questions in a loud voice, Yen Ling felt extremely depressed. She couldn't help but curse in her heart. Fuck, what a useless man. He couldn't even handle such a small matter. In her opinion, since she had already testified against her, she should have arrested that hateful woman and tortured her. She shouldn't have just left after asking a few questions. Looking at the depressed Yen Ling, Leng Ruoxue smiled and said, it seems that Miss Yan's wishful thinking will not work. However, don't blame me for not warning you. If you want to drag me down, I don't mind hitting you when you're down. We'll see who can live to the end. After hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Yen Ling glared at her in anger. However, Leng Ruoxue ignored her. The next day, the Hong family's butler brought Leng Ruoxue to a study. After entering the study room, Leng Ruoxue found a chair and sat down as if she was in her own home. The man sitting behind the desk only smiled when he saw Leng Ruoxue's actions, but he did not criticize her. May I know what is the relationship between Miss and the Yen family? The man was the first to ask. It doesn't matter. Leng Ruoxue said coldly, and casually raised her beautiful eyes to glance at the man who spoke. This man looked to be around 40 years old. Although he wasn't very handsome, he was still considered decent. His strength was around the middle level of a supreme deity. If she guessed correctly, this person should be the current family head or the substitute family head of the Hong family. Chapter 1324, The Yen Family's Enemy, 5. Since there's no relationship, then why is young lady and the rest with the Yen clan? The man asked in confusion. He had only sent people to catch the Yen family, but he didn't expect to catch a beautiful woman. However, if he knew that the beautiful woman in his eyes was caught willingly, he would probably be depressed. What are you saying? I can't be with the Yen family just because I have no relationship with them? What if I say I'm a prisoner of the Yen clan? Leng Ruoxue said calmly. Ah. Hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, the man didn't know what to say. It seemed like the butler was right. Although this woman was beautiful, she was also ruthless. I don't know how young Miss became the Yen clan's prisoner. Now that the Yen clan's eldest master is in my hands, perhaps I can help young Miss get rid of her status as a prisoner. The man suggested with a smile. Miss Yen has taken a fancy to my man, so she wanted to kill me. However, she was frightened by my beastie, so the father and daughter caught us and wanted to bring us back to the Yen family to be dealt with. Leng Ruoxue explained simply. So that's how it is. Yen Ling has always been overbearing. As long as she has her eyes on something, she will definitely get it. Young lady has suffered. The man said sympathetically. It's not your place to apologize to me. Leng Ruoxue reminded him, feeling a little amused. She did not appreciate this man's goodwill, nor did she dare to. After all, she was not related to this man in any way. This fellow probably did not have any good intentions. Miss must have misunderstood me. I'm only doing this out of good intentions. The man said with a calm smile. Is that so? Leng Ruoxue smiled faintly and did not say anything. After that, the man tried to start a conversation with Leng Ruoxue. However, Leng Ruoxue seemed to be ignoring him. When the man saw this, he could only order the butler to send her back. After the Hong family's butler brought Leng Ruoxue out of the study, they did not return to the cell. Instead, they were brought to a side courtyard. That side courtyard was located in the southwest of the Hong family's main residence. Although it was a certain distance away from the main courtyard, The scenery in the courtyard was very unique. There was even a small stream that ran through the entire courtyard. A few beautiful fish were happily swimming around in the stream. Looking at the beautiful scenery and the pleasant weather, Lung Ruoxue chuckled and played dumb as she asked, "Is this a prison cell? I've only been gone for a while and the prison has changed? Of course this isn't a prison cell. My master knows that you're not a member of the Yen family and was afraid that you'd be wronged. That's why he ordered me to arrange for you to stay here." The butler explained, implying that Lung Ruoxue should appreciate his master's kindness. "Oh, then what about my man and beastie?" Lung Ruoxue asked with a smile. "You are reading on MBO X and 0V. Of course they don't have such treatment," the butler said with disdain. "If that's the case, then please take me back to the prison. I want to be with them," Lung Ruoxue said in a serious tone. Why are you so insensible?" the butler shouted angrily. He was so excited that his entire body was trembling. "Calm down. Old people shouldn't be so agitated, you'll die of sudden death," Lung Ruoxue reminded kindly. The butler was so angry that he could not speak. However, Lung Ruoxue had no intention of letting him off just like that. "Are you going to bring me back to the prison, or bring my man and beastie here? Make your choice." After she finished speaking, Lung Ruoxue found a random spot in the garden and sat down, waiting for the butler, who was so angry that his face had turned green, to make a decision. After a long while, the butler heaved a sigh of relief and said helplessly, "Little ancestor, you'll bring them here, all right?" He admitted defeat. The master had ordered him to satisfy all the requests of this young lady. The master really forgot his daughter when he saw a woman. He had originally promised the second miss to severely punish this young lady, but after seeing her, he changed his mind. Not only did he ask him to arrange for this young lady to stay in the side courtyard, but he also ordered him to satisfy all her requests. This subordinate is in a difficult position. If the second miss knew about this, who knew what kind of trouble she would cause? Not long after, the butler brought the demon and snow shadow over. When Shui Ying saw their new residence, he deliberately praised, "AI. It was good to be beautiful. There's always someone to take care of you wherever you go." "What did you just say?" When the demon heard Shui Ying's words, he narrowed his eyes dangerously and asked with some displeasure. "I didn't say anything." Shui Ying hurriedly covered her mouth, her heart trembling. This hateful fellow, why did she get angry at such a cute little animal? If she wanted to vent her anger, she should go to a certain man who wanted to court her. The evildoer snorted coldly, but his pitch-black eyes shot towards the Hong family's steward like a sharp arrow. The steward was so frightened that his body trembled even more. He casually found an excuse and the steward fled. "You're still the most powerful." Shui Ying's eyes were filled with countless stars as he spoke with an expression of worship. You've met the head of the Hong family?" The demon ignored Shui Ying's admiration and asked Lung Ruoxue. "I've seen him before. That person didn't introduce himself." Lung Ruoxue said honestly. "Oh, what is he trying to do by doing all this?" The demon frowned and said with a displeased expression. "Isn't it obvious?" Snow Shadow interrupted. "No one will think you're mute if you don't speak." The demon roared angrily. "All right, I'll just shut up," Shui Ying said in an extremely aggrieved manner. "As a cute fox, why did it have no status?" His resentful gaze drifted over to Lung Ruoxue, but was ignored by her. Seeing this, Shui Ying's heart was bleeding. The next day, the two humans and one beast had just finished lunch and were sitting in the garden, basking in the sun. However, they were suddenly disturbed by an uninvited guest. These uninvited guests were two women. One of them was the green-clothed woman they had seen a few days ago. She was also the young Miss Liu that Shui Ying had mentioned. "Miss Liu, have your injuries recovered? I heard that your injuries aren't light. How did you get out of bed so quickly?" Shui Ying looked at the furious green-clothed lady nearby and said with a regretful expression, "Damn it, weren't you guys in the prison? Why are you here?" Hong Xen looked at the relaxed Lung Ruoxue in front of him, and the anger in his heart rose. The Hong family is now in the hands of Miss Lu? Lung Ruoxue asked with a smile. What do you mean by that? Hong Xian asked in confusion. What I mean is, if the Hong family isn't decided by Miss Lu, then you don't need to ask where we are. In fact, I also want to know why we were moved here from the cell. Lung Ruoxue said with a light smile. Miss, this is our Hong family after all. Therefore, you should be more polite to the master. At this time, the woman beside Hong Xian spoke softly. Lung Ruoxue turned to look at the woman who had spoken. She was dressed in light purple and had an alluring figure. Her delicate face was filled with charm, and her eyes were as alluring as autumn water. Her pink lips were slightly open, but her face was a little pale. She looked extremely pitiful. A woman like this could definitely arouse a man's strong desire to protect her. However, it was a pity that neither the man nor the fox in front of the lady in purple had the characteristics of being tender to a woman. Therefore, her weak appearance was a waste. Miss Z, you're so funny. We were captured by your Hong family and you expect us to be polite to you? I really don't know if my brain is broken or if you don't have a brain. Lung Ruoxue imitated the way Shui Ying addressed her and said with a mocking expression. My last name is not Z. The purple-clothed woman's reaction was exactly the same as Hong Xian's. Her beautiful face didn't show anger from embarrassment, but an incomparable grievance. Her beautiful eyes were like autumn water, and she even secretly glanced at the demon. Unfortunately, the unromantic demon didn't even bother to raise his head, let alone look at her. When the purple-clothed woman saw that her charm, which had always been successful, had actually lost its effect in front of this handsome godlike man, her self-esteem could not help but take a blow. However, she, who had always been doted on by the Hong family, naturally would not easily admit defeat. Who cares what your last name is? Shui Ying laughed. These self-righteous women. Did they really think that they cared about who they were? They were just too lazy to ask for their names, so they called them by the color of their clothes, hee. Chapter 1325. The decision of the master of the Hong family. 1. Stupid fox. How dare you? How can you speak to my sister like that? Hong Xian saw that his sister was being bullied by a fox, and immediately roared in righteous anger. Miss Lu, calm down. You're the daughter of a big family, this will make you worry about not being able to get married. Shui Ying kindly reminded her. However, his words seemed to have touched the lady in green's sore spot. After the lady in green heard his words, she actually started to roar without caring about her image. Who are you saying can't get married? Why can't I get married? I don't know how many people are fighting to marry me. Hong Xian roared angrily, her beautiful face turning red. Seeing her like this, Lung Ruoxue and the rest only smiled indifferently and ignored the two women in front of them. Hey, I'm talking to you. Don't pretend to be mute. After a long while, Hong Xian saw that no one was paying attention to her and couldn't help but ask loudly. Miss Lu is talking to us? How come I didn't hear that? Lung Ruoxue played dumb. You just wait. This is our Hong family. You can't be so presumptuous. Hong Xian was furious. Just as she was about to whip Lung Ruoxue as usual to teach her a lesson, she realized that there was nothing on her waist. It was then that she suddenly remembered that her whip had been destroyed by this detestable woman in front of her. She had even been injured because of it. Hence, she was even more furious. Miss Lu, although we are just prisoners, we also have our dignity. As the master, you don't know how to love yourself. It's fine if you don't respect others, but you also don't care about your image and come to a place where others go and shout. If word of your current appearance spreads, I'm afraid that the Hong family's reputation will also be affected by you. At that time, not to mention you, even this gentle as water, weak and lovely sister of yours, I'm afraid no one will dare to want her. Lung Ruoxue reminded kindly. This young lady is right. We have been impolite. Except let's leave. After hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, the lady in purple gave a slight bow as an apology. After she finished speaking, she pulled the extremely unwilling Hong Xian and left Lung Ruoxue and the others' residence. Looking at the back of the two people leaving, Shui Ying was quite puzzled and asked, Shui, why did the two of them just leave like that? What else? Do you want Hong Xen to capture you and make you her beastie? Leng Ruoxue laughed evilly as she teased Hong Xen. She could still remember the look in Hong Xin's eyes when he first saw Shui Ying. I don't want to. I'm already taken. Snow Shadow looked at the evildoer provocatively as it spoke with a hint of pride. The master it was referring to was naturally Leng Ruoxue. Although it had not officially recognized her as its master, in its heart, no one was more suitable than Leng Ruoxue to be its master. If it really wanted to recognize a master, it would definitely be Leng Ruoxue. No one else was worthy. Hearing Shui Ying's words, Leng Ruoxue's forehead was filled with black lines. Actually, she really wanted to tell Shui Ying that the words, "A famous woman already has a master," should not be used carelessly. However, Shui Ying was obviously doing this on purpose. Feeling the evildoer's rising anger, Leng Ruoxue tactfully pulled him into the room, in case Shui Ying was killed by him. Seeing that Leng Ruoxue and the demon had left, Shui Ying pretended to be sad and said, "Ai, why am I always the lonely one?" After mumbling to himself, Snow Shadow also disappeared. You are reading on UIBOXN0vil.com. After Hong Xian and her sister left the side courtyard, they came to the main courtyard angrily to question their father. Facing Hong Xin's questioning tone, the anger in the Hong family's head slowly rose. His face darkened as he said coldly, "Are you questioning me? How can you speak to your own father like that? Father, you promised to help me take revenge. How can you go back on your word?" Hong Xen pouted and said in dissatisfaction, "That woman isn't a member of the Yen clan, and I'm not sure about her background. Do you think I'll just take the risk of avenging you? If the other party is someone we can't afford to offend, it will bring disaster to our Hong family." The man said as if he was deep in thought. Looking at the girl's dress, she didn't seem to be the daughter of a big family. "What are you thinking, father? Or do you like that woman?" Hong Xen obviously didn't believe his father's words, and still asked loudly, "What nonsense are you spouting?" The man immediately felt embarrassed that his daughter had seen through his thoughts, so he loudly rebuked her. Whether I'm talking nonsense or not, father knows very well in his heart. However, that woman is indeed a beauty, so it's reasonable for father to like her. Unfortunately, she's not qualified to be father's concubine. At most, she's only worthy of being a bed-warming servant girl. Hong Xian warned. You're getting more and more out of hand." The man suppressed his anger and growled. His daughter didn't have good taste, but that didn't mean she didn't either. How could a woman like her agree to be someone else's bed-warming servant? Although he knew that his daughter said this on purpose, he didn't know why, but he felt uncomfortable in his heart. "Don't talk nonsense, father will be angry." Sensing her father's displeasure, the woman in purple tugged at Hong Xin's sleeve, trying to remind her to be careful with her words and not to anger her father. However, Hong Xin's temper was that it would be better if others didn't persuade her, but if someone did, her temper would only get worse. Therefore, not only did the purple-dressed woman's words not have a good effect, but it also made Hong Xen even angrier. "Father, don't forget that you promised to avenge me. Now, I want to add 2 more conditions. I want that man and that fox, and you have to find a way to get them for me." Hong Xen ordered like a queen. Her words made the man's heart skip a beat and he almost fainted. You unfilial daughter. You actually dare to order me around. Lock up the second miss. Without my orders, no one is allowed to let her out. The man angrily shouted at the guard outside the door. The guard came in and took Hong Xian away without hesitation. "Father, since her is still young and insensible, please don't hold it against her, please let her go." When the purple-clothed woman saw that Hong Xen was taken away by the guards, she quickly pleaded for mercy. The guards in the main courtyard only listened to her father, and Xen had angered her father. This time, she was afraid that Xen would have to stay in her courtyard for a while. "Lian, if Xen is half as sensible as you, you'll be content." The man sighed. In fact, he was very clear about the temperament of his two daughters. Although he seemed to dote on Hong Lian on the surface, in reality, he doted on Hong Xian more. Chapter 1326, The Decision of the Master of the Hong Family, 2. Because although Hong Xin's temper wasn't good and was a little willful, but that was her true nature. As for Hong Lian, this daughter, she looked weak and fragile on the outside, but her schemes were too deep and she was too good at disguising herself. If this kind of woman were to marry into another family, she would definitely be an excellent chess piece. However, in the Hong family, he had to be on guard. Father, Xin is still young. When she's older, she'll be more sensible. Hong Lian consoled. I hope so. Lian, your body hasn't fully recovered yet. Why did you come out? Quickly go back to your room and rest. They'll come to see you when I'm done. The man said with a concerned look. Father, I've been weak and sickly since I was young. I've gotten used to it after so many years, so you don't have to worry about me. If it wasn't for my health, the relationship between our Hong family and the Yen family wouldn't be like this. I've let you down, Father. I've let the Hong family down. Hong Lian's beautiful eyes were filled with tears. Lian, how can you be blamed for this? Don't think too much about it. The man consoled. But Hong Lian seemed to want to say something, but he didn't say it. Lian, you don't have to say anything. Father understands. Quickly go back to your room and rest. The man hurriedly said. Father. Then I'll go back to my room first. After Hong Lian finished speaking, he gave a bow and left. The moment Hong Lian left, the butler walked in. Patriarch, what do you think we should do about this? The butler asked carefully. He knew that the master was not in a good mood, but the master had to give him instructions so that he could carry out the next step. After all, he did not dare to make decisions on his own. Did you send someone to inform the Yen clan? The man asked coldly. I've already sent people over. Don't worry, Patriarch. However, what about the other three? The butler looked conflicted. What do you mean? Didn't you already arrange for them to stay in the side courtyard? The man asked in confusion. Master, what I mean is that second miss and them are like fire and water, and you're treating them so well. I'm afraid it will affect the relationship between you and your daughter. So, I hope Master will think twice. The butler reminded him in a low voice. You don't need to worry about this matter. I know what I'm doing. You can leave. The man said in a somewhat upset manner. You are reading on Imbil Xn 0 Vil. Yes. The butler replied and turned to leave. At night, when Leng Ruoxue and the demon walked out of the room, they saw Xue Ying sitting in the garden. The stone table in front of him was filled with all sorts of delicacies, and Xue Ying was eating with great joy. Looking at Xue Ying, whose face was covered in oil, Leng Ruoxue shook her head helplessly and said, Xue Ying, pay attention to your image. It's a pity that you have such beautiful long fur. Xue, I know you've been drooling over my fur for a long time. Wait until I'm done eating, then I'll wash it and let you touch it all you want. Xue Ying laughed evilly. These things were all sent over by the attentive housekeeper, saying that it was for them to eat. However, Xue Ying was well aware that if it wasn't for Leng Ruoxue, they wouldn't have been able to enjoy such good treatment. Even though the food was not as delicious as the one Xue made, it was still acceptable. You're looking for death. The moment the demon heard Snow Shadow's words, his anger immediately surged up. He raised his leg and kicked in Snow Shadow's direction. However, Snow Shadow dodged it nimbly. What a petty man, you're so easily embarrassed and angry. Xue, he's bullying small animals. Xue Ying ran to Leng Ruoxue's side to seek protection. A small animal? Leng Ruoxue looked at Xue Ying, who had called himself a small animal, and could not help but laugh in her heart. To be honest, she had never seen such a huge small animal. If it became a small animal, then what would those smaller than it be called? A small animal? Xue, you have to protect me. Xue Ying tugged at Leng Ruoxue's clothes fearfully. Don't play around anymore. Be careful or he'll really get angry. I won't help you then. Leng Ruoxue helplessly reminded. You're a woman who values her lover over her friends. I've misjudged you. When Shui Ying heard this, he immediately pouted and said in a very dissatisfied manner, "Then ill value my lover over my friends, how's that?" Leng Ruoxue said disapprovingly, "There shouldn't be anything wrong with helping her man, right? What can I do? Don't be so fierce." Shui Ying's little heart trembled in fear. "You're tactful." Leng Ruoxue chuckled. "Shui, I won't tease you anymore. By the way, I went out for a walk this afternoon. Guess what I found out?" Shui Ying said with a mysterious expression. "Go out for a walk? With your giant fox appearance? No one wants to capture you as a beastie?" Leng Ruoxue sized up Shui Ying and asked curiously, "Oh, a fourth-ranked sacred beast or higher seemed to be worth a lot of money, especially such a beautiful big fox. Presumably, many women would like it and want to keep it for themselves. Hey, who dares to capture me? I can't bite him to death." Shui Ying said arrogantly. "Shui, do you want to know what I've found out?" Snow Shadow continued to ask. "If you want to say it, then say it. If you don't want to say it, then don't say it." Leng Ruoxue acted as if she didn't care. "Can't you just cooperate?" Shui Ying said gloomily. Even Shui was bullying him. "All right, Shui Ying, what did you find out?" Leng Ruoxue asked, pretending to be curious. "I'll tell you if you want to know." Shui Ying said with a hint of pride, his proud tail almost raised up. "If you want to say it quickly. I'll roast you and eat you if you continue to talk nonsense." When the demon saw Shui Ying's smug look, he was so angry that he directly threatened him. "Shui, he's going to eat me." When Shui Ying heard this, he looked at Leng Ruoxue with tears in his eyes, seeking protection. However, he was completely ignored by Leng Ruoxue. "Then don't keep us in suspense. There's a limit to the patience of a demon," Leng Ruoxue reminded. "All right then." Shui Ying cleared his throat and began to speak. "I've heard that the Hong clan and the Yen clan were originally on good terms. However, the reason why they fell out with each other was because of the eldest miss of the Hong clan, the lady in purple, Hong Lian, whom we met this afternoon. The head of the Hong clan had the intention to be in-laws with the Yen clan, and Hong Lian happened to have taken a fancy to the fifth young master of the Yen clan. However, the fifth young master of the Yen clan did not like her and rejected the marriage on the spot. Hong Lian was so angry that his old illness relapsed, and the head of the Hong clan also deeply felt that he had hurt the face of the Hong clan. Hence, from then on he continuously caused trouble for the Yen clan. The robbery of the Yen clan's first master this time was also because of this matter. Snow Shadow explained with a smile. Of course, it had heard these words from the streets, and it had not verified whether they were true or false. Chapter 1327. The Decision of the Master of the Hong Family, 3. Could it be that the old master of the Yen clan doesn't know that his clan has already fallen out with the Hong clan? Why did you come to Hong City to settle down? Leng Ruoxue asked in confusion. According to common sense, if two clans had fallen out, normal people would not come to the other's territory to avoid being caught and used to threaten their own clans. However, this eldest master of the Yen clan did not take the usual route. He insisted on passing through the enemy's territory to return to his own clan. Wasn't he seeking his own death? It shouldn't be that he doesn't know. He just doesn't care. I didn't expect the Hong family to not let him off either. The demon said, "I wonder if the Yen clan will send people to save their master if they find out that he has fallen into the hands of the Hong clan?" Leng Ruoxue was extremely curious. "If I don't want to save them, I'll just let them die on their own." The demon said coldly, "It's a pity we're not from the Yen family." Leng Ruoxue laughed. Actually, her thoughts were similar to that of a demoness. For people like the Yen family's eldest master and daughter, living was a waste of food. It was better to die early and reincarnate. Shui, we just need to watch the drama between their two families. As for the debt of them kidnapping us, we will slowly settle it with them after the matter between them is resolved. The demon suggested. That's what I want. Leng Ruoxue nodded in agreement. You guys are so bad, but I like it. Shui Ying said with a smile. The two men and one beast looked at each other and laughed. They discussed their countermeasures and then went back to their own rooms. At the same time, the Yen clan had also received news from the Hong clan. The Yen clan's first master and the others were in their hands. When the Yen family had received this news, he was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. When the Yen family members saw this, they couldn't help but turn pale with fright. After all, the family head was the backbone of their Yen family. They couldn't allow any mishaps. Therefore, at that moment, no one was in the mood to discuss how to save the father and daughter. They only wanted to comfort the master. Looking at the half-unconscious master, everyone in the Yen family was extremely worried. They all stayed by the master's bedside, not daring to leave. After all, this was the best time for them to show their loyalty to the master, so of course, they would not let it go. After a long while, only then did the patriarch of the Yen clan open his eyes and look at the people of the Yen clan gathered around his bed. Not only did he not feel relieved, but he felt even more upset. You are reading on Inbo Xn 0 VL. Com AI. Why didn't any of the Yen family's descendants make him worry? Master, you have to be careful of your health. You're the pillar of support for the Yen clan. For the sake of the Yen clan, you have to take care of your body. An elder from the Yen clan spoke first. Each and every one of them doesn't give me peace of mind. I'm so angry at these unfilial descendants that I'm about to die. The patriarch of the Yen clan said with a look of disappointment. Master, you don't have to worry about the eldest master's matter, just leave it to me. The elder said. Forget it, there's no need to care about his life or death. He clearly knows that our Yen family and the Hong family are like fire and water, yet he still came to the Hong family's territory. Even if something were to happen to him, he can't blame anyone else. He'll just treat it as if I never had this son. Although the head of the Yen clan was in a daze due to his illness, he had also thought it through very clearly. The reason why the Hong clan had captured his eldest son was nothing more than to blackmail him. Therefore, he could not destroy the Yen clan's many years of foundation just because of a useless son. If that happened, he would be too embarrassed to go to the divine world and meet the ancestors of the clan. Father, are you really not going to care about Big Brother and Ling? Second Master Yen couldn't help but ask. I don't care. Life and death are up to fate. It's all up to his own good fortune. The Yen clan master said ruthlessly. Master, have a good rest. Don't worry about these small things. The elder said. Yes. The Yen family head nodded and indicated that they could leave. After everyone had left the patriarch's room, the Yen clan's second master quickly called out to a few of the elders and said with an anxious expression, Elders, father is speaking in a fit of anger. You can't ignore Big Brother's life. Second master. The patriarch's words just now were very clear. He told us not to care about the life and death of the first master. If we disobey the patriarch's orders and bring disaster to the family, we can't afford to take responsibility for it. One of the elders said helplessly. Second master, the clan is currently in troubled times. We have to think for the clan. As for first master, we can only count on his luck. Another elder said sympathetically. However, it was obvious that they were powerless to do anything about this. With that, the elders left hand in hand, leaving the Yen clan's second master standing alone in a daze. After a long time, only then did second master Yen react. He had originally planned to return to his own residence, but as he walked, he came to the guest courtyard where Ziyu and the others were staying. When he realized that he had gone to the wrong place, Ziyu and the others also happened to discover him. Ziyu and the others were sitting in the garden drinking tea and chatting. When they saw the somewhat absent-minded second master of the Yen clan, they were all puzzled. What was wrong with this second master? The second master of the Yen clan had often come to keep them company during the past few days they had been staying at the Yen residence. Therefore, they were considered familiar with the second master of the Yen clan. However, they had never seen this expression on the second master's face. Did something happen to the Yen family again? The four of them secretly guessed. Second master, please sit. Ziyu invited with a smile. Thank you. The second master of the Yen clan sat down, but he did not say a word. Second master, is there something that's troubling you? Why don't you tell us? Maybe we can give you some advice. Ziyu smiled faintly and said softly, AI, it's a long story. The Yen clan's second master heavily sighed. It's okay, we have time to listen to you. Yu Jing said. You guys should know my big brother, right? He was sent to northern Yen City by father a while ago, but he has yet to return. Second Master Yen said. I've heard of him. It's said that he has left northern Yen City for a long time. Why hasn't he returned yet? Ziyu probed. He was captured by the Hong family. They're using him as a hostage. The Yen clan's second master said helplessly. What's going on with the Hong family? Ziyu and the other three were a little dumbfounded. The Yen clan aside, why was there a Hong clan now? Where is the young miss now? Chapter 1328. The Decision of the Master of the Hong Family. 4. The Hong family and our Yen family were old friends. However, because of the falling out with the next generation's marriage, the Hong family now sees us as enemies. As long as they see the Yen family, they won't let them off. The Yen clan's second master said helplessly, Isn't it just a marriage? You're making a mountain out of a molehill by turning hostile over such a small matter. Bai Xu said, somewhat speechless. That marriage is just an excuse for the Hong family to fall out with us. In fact, the real reason is that the Hong family wants to swallow us up. Therefore, even without that marriage as the firelock, they would still find other excuses to fall out with us. The second master of the Yen clan understood. Outsiders only thought that the Hong and Yen clans had fallen out because of the unsuccessful marriage, but that was not the case. The matter was not as simple as they thought. The head of the Hong clan was extremely ambitious. Otherwise, why would he take the opportunity to make trouble over a small marriage? His father had been seriously injured because of this and had yet to recover. So that's how it is. I wonder what the Yen clan's plans are? Ziyu asked indifferently. The Yen family is planning to leave my big brother to his own devices. The Yen clan's second master said with some difficulty. Oh, the Yen clan's decision is right. Just let that old master of yours live and die on his own. Yu Qing said with a gloating expression. Ha! The Yen family's decision really won her heart. After listening to Yu Qing's words, the Yen clan's second master's head was full of black lines. He really didn't know what his big brother had done this time. He actually let Yu Qing know that his big brother had been captured, and the Yen clan didn't plan to save him, and yet he was so happy? Second Master Yen, the moon, I didn't mean it. Don't take it to heart. Ziyu gave Yu Qing a look, asking her to restrain herself, and said to the Yen clan's second master with an apologetic face. I want to. That big brother of mine is indeed not very likable. The second master of the Yen clan said awkwardly. It seems that you're quite clear about this. Yu Qing said with a smile. Second Master Yen didn't know what to say anymore. He could already confirm that his eldest brother had indeed done something they didn't know about. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such an attitude. He probably wouldn't come looking for him. The extremely embarrassed second Master Yen, after understanding the intentions of Ziyu and the others, could not stay any longer. Not long after, he stood up and took his leave. Watching the Yen clan's second master's back as he left, Yu Qing disdainfully pouted. She then turned to look at Ziyu and said, Ziyu, not only did that Yen clan's first master not bring the young miss back, he even implicated the young miss and got her captured by the Hong clan. Let's go to the Hong clan. Let's just wait and see. No matter if the young lady is in the hands of the Yen clan's first master or in the Hong clan, she won't be in any danger. Ziyu said, feeling assured. But it's been so long. I can't wait any longer. Why don't I go to the Hong residence myself, and you guys wait for me and Miss at the Yen residence? Yu Qing suggested. You are reading on Imbo X and 0 Veal. That's good. Then you should make a trip to the Hong family. Ziyu looked at Yu Qing's eager appearance and said helplessly. Yu Qing, I'll go with you. Xiang received Ziye's hint and quickly said. Then let's go. The moon, I said happily, hee hee. She was really afraid that Ziyu would object just now. With Yu Qing's impetuous nature, the two of them left Yen City in the next moment. Only after leaving Yen City did the two of them realize that they actually didn't know where the Hong family was. What should he do? If he went back to ask around, he would be laughed at by Ziyu. Therefore, the two of them could only bite the bullet and ask around to find their target. Fortunately, Hong City wasn't far from Yen City and the people in the vicinity knew the location. Otherwise, they would have to take many unnecessary steps. However, after arriving at Hong City, they weren't too sure if their young lady was really here until they contacted Leng Ruoxue. After the two of them confirmed Leng Ruoxue's location, they went straight to the Hong family's main residence. However, before the two of them could enter, they were stopped by the guards at the door. "We're looking for someone," Yu Qing said with some displeasure. "Looking for who? Do you have a letter of visit?" The guard asked loudly. "No, I didn't. We're looking for my young miss, but she was captured by you along with the Yen clan." Xiang explained in a soft voice. Originally, she wanted to ask a guard to inform them. However, Yu Qing said that the young lady had been captured and wasn't here as a guest. How could the guards of the Hong family inform them? After hearing this, Xiang felt that it was reasonable and agreed with Yu Qing's idea of barging in. Perhaps the Hong family would be angry and lock them up with the young lady. With this thought in mind, the two of them swaggered past the guards at the door and wanted to walk in directly. However, they could ignore the guards, but the guards could not ignore them. Therefore, they were stopped as they wished. "Wait a moment, I have to report this." When the guard heard Xiang Er's words, he hurriedly said, "Ah." Seeing the guard's reaction, the two of them were dumbfounded. What was going on? Their attitudes were equivalent to smashing the place, so why did the guard still have to go in and report? Just as the two of them were confused, the butler of the Hong family walked out. "You want to see the young lady who was with the Yen family?" The steward's shrewd eyes swept over Yu Qing and Xiang. When he discovered that the two of them only had the strength of an initial stage deity, he didn't pay too much attention to them and asked indifferently, "Yes, I am." Xiang nodded. "Follow me." The butler saw that the two of them were not very powerful and they were both women. He did not ask any questions and brought them into the Hong residence. Then, he brought them all the way to the side courtyard where Leng Ruoxue and the others were staying. Yu Qing and Xiang followed behind the Hong family's butler, and the two of them were still communicating with each other through voice transmission. "Xiang, what do you think is going on with the Hong family? Is he trying to trick us into coming here and then get rid of us?" Seeing the Hong family's reaction, Yu Qing was a little worried. "I don't think so." Xiang was also a little confused, not knowing what the Hong family was up to. However, when they saw Leng Ruoxue, everything became clear. As they followed the butler to the side courtyard, the two of them saw Leng Ruoxue sitting in the garden. "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.